flag is in the air, away we go, and it is a good start from Kevin Ellis Jr. on pole position, down into turn number 1. Jared Filselder got a good launch. Patrick Holtzman and Max Beneke are going to go side by side through 1. Beneke gets bullied off the track over the grass. He's going to lose a little bit of momentum and speed there as they're going into the S's once again for the first time. Drivers now getting themselves sorted in single file. 28, Alexander Thebe was getting pushed wide there by Graham Carroll, it looked like it was then, but into the bus stop for the first time, and it's still that Apex Racing team. Oh, battle and then side by side into contact. Jack Sedgwick and Alexander Thebe at the bus stop chicane. We said that was going to be a place, there's an Altus car up as well. We said that was going to be a place where potentially there would be incidents, and that's exactly what we've seen here on the opening lap. Cedric getting caught by Alexander Thebe into there. That sent those two all the way down your field, but we're still green flag racing here as they go through the toe of the boot, heading uphill now on the exit that corner side by side. That's Max Jensen and Ricardo Castro-Ledo through the toe then, and they're going to sort themselves out. So Jensen is staying ahead for the time being onto the brakes, and Castro-Ledo is going to have to try and make his way through in a different way. But through 8 into 9 they all go. Everybody's still behaving themselves pretty much apart from that opening incident, and we'll see, we'll look at the replay back then of the start then, and Connery, it was Jack Sedgwick who got turned. That's what kicked it all off there at the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, there we go. There's the slide there from the rear Ascot and SimSports driver ahead that actually caught up one of the pure cars and caused even further carnage behind as well. Some questionable rejoins there, especially from the driver of the PRT machine, which I believe, looking at this one, would have been the driver of Lauren Henry. No, it was Alexander Thebe that came back across the circuit in a pretty questionable manner, but that will be looked at by the stewards after this race. That one is for sure. But looking back at the front of the field now, Kevin Ellis Jr. going to come under threat from his teammate then, Phil Sell. He has to be careful. He knows that he can't be having any contact with his teammate here, especially when it comes to a feature race lead. But I have to say this, Paul, Jared Filsell is the faster driver here, but how much Apex Racing team actually going to let these guys race, or are they going to negotiate a swap? Because the longer that Filsell stays behind here, the more of a threat Holtzman, Job, Fanchak, Beneke are behind, and we'll just have a completely stacked up field for the race lead for the entire race.
But don't forget, it is an individual championship. There are no teams championships in this. It's every man for himself. So as well, Phil Sell looking to get the better exit at the corner. Kamil Franchek there as well, putting the pressure on Sebastian Job in third place. As fourth place, should I say, sorry. But the rest of your field looking through. Sedgwick is trying to make some moves, trying to recover from that incident at the bus stop chicane. But through the go, we're on board with De Jong then, trying to have a good second race here after a bit of a nightmare that he had in the race number 1 here today. But it's a 30-minute race, plenty of time for things to happen, and these drivers need to settle down into a rhythm pretty early on here, try and get themselves, and this is where more the thinking man driver would come into play here, and really come into play in terms of how they work their moves on the drivers in front. But it's still Ellis Jr. ahead of Phil Sell, with Holtzman, who we're on board with, in third place, and Sebastian Job fourth place. So it's Apex Racing Team 1-2, Red Bull Racing Esports Team 3-4, as they head up the hill towards the bus stop chicane, and Phil Sell looking, but backing off there, and he's just waiting, biding his time here. But all this time, Connery, as you mentioned, that's allowing Holtzman to keep in that slipstream.
Yeah, this is Phil Sell. I get what he's going for here. He doesn't want to go for a lunge on his teammate. He doesn't want to make contact with his teammate. He's already been involved in contact himself in that sprint race, so he knows the danger of going for moves down into the bus stop. But all it's doing is just stacking up everyone here behind your two Apex Racing team cars. And of course, you have the Red Bull Racing Esports there, just ready and waiting to pounce in case there's a little bit of an altercation between the two teammates in front. You can see Sebastian Job, well, further down the line, he just briefly weaved in and out of line. We were on board with Maximum Benecke here, looking to gain a huge amount of points over his next two challengers in the point standings. Mitchell de Jong down the field. Joshua Rogers also very far down the field. So Benecke is going to have a fantastic day here if he can at least finish inside this top 6, which he already is.
Yeah, absolutely. As they head through turn number 10 once again into 11, the final corner. And really, it's a queue of cars from first all the way down, I would say, to around 17th at the moment. So that's just how long this queue of traffic is. We can't even fit it on screen, that's how long this queue of traffic is. But as they head into turn number 1, you have to say Phil Sell putting the pressure on his teammate once again, as Marcus Jensen now with the fastest lap of the race, a 50.5, as they go up the hill now through the S's. And this is where Phil Sell can use the slipstream, use that extra speed that it gives him. He's going to have to make the move, and he's not. He's backing off again. So it's the question of they're working together and trying to work away from the guys behind. But the thing is, they're not pulling away from the guys behind. They've got Patrick Holtzman and Sebastian Job and the rest of that queue all just waiting patiently for them to make a move.
I think it's also a slightly similar issue here with the Red Bull Racing Esports driver, because typically in my mind I'd rank Sebastian Job above Patrick Holtzman, and if you look at qualifying times, that is certainly the case, with 0.3 of a second going the way of Sebastian Job. So this is a bit of an awkward situation here at the front of the field, where the faster driver doesn't want to put a move on the slower driver for fear of taking them out the race. But further back through the field, that was a Williams Esports car that was involved in an altercation there down towards the toe. That's Lauren Henreich there as they head their way down towards the heel. So pretty much the entire field all the way down to, I would say, around about P27 here are basically still on the same train.
As Heinrich trying to make the move there on the 47 of Alejandro Sanchez, and that's going to allow the door to be opened to the car behind, which is Josh Rogers, who's trying to recover his way through this field. But we turn our attention to the front. You saw Kevin Ellis Jr. just getting a little bit loose on the exit of that final corner. Phil Sell, there's only so long you can wait behind. You have to make a move and make it stick. And I suppose the thing that he's concerned about is if he makes a move, those other Red Bull cars and the rest of the queue might make the move on them as well. So it could end up costing Kevin Ellis Jr. a lot more points. But right now, Ellis Jr., he isn't the one in a championship battle. Phil Sell still has an outside chance of a championship here. There's still plenty of points available. Patrick Holtzman, though, 7th in the championship. He is ahead by 4 places of his teammate Sebastian Job in the championship. So it's all well and good saying that Job's the quicker driver, but Holtzman is in the better position for the championship as well. This is why I mentioned it is every person for themselves. It is not a team's championship, and that's what made it so good. As we look at Kamil Franchek, who quite frankly is having one of the best meetings of this season for himself in the Triton racing car.
Yeah, he is having a very, very good day indeed. And just to put that in perspective, well, his best race result in a feature race is going to be P27. P27 is his best result in a feature race. His best result in a sprint race is P4. That was at the second round of the season. But Franchak is looking to gain a very, very good points haul to launch himself all the way up the points table here with a top 5 finish. But the thing is, he has to hold on to it. And when you have Maximum Benecke and Gregor Hutu behind you, that looks to be a little bit more difficult.
I'm going to say it's easier said than done, that's for sure, as they head into the final corner once again. We have got 10 minutes in the books almost. As they go across the line, it's 20 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in this one. Got 3 drivers in a group there, and it is Alejandro Sanchez who's in the sandwich there. Moritz Lerner in front, and Josh Rogers 26th behind. And those 3 battling it out. Rogers looking to the inside into turn 1. You can make the move and make it stick, and that's exactly what he's done there. Sanchez runs wide, and Rogers takes advantage of that, and he sets his sights now on that car of Moritz Lerner as they go through the S. He's trying to use the slipstream to get ahead. It's as you were at the front, so we don't need to worry about them. But Rogers, he's on a bit of a charge here ahead of Sanchez.
I mean, he has to be on a bit of a charge. He just needs to gain the most amount of points possible, which is the most obvious statement when you can make in these sorts of races. But the context of it is that at this stage, Joshua Rogers is at risk of losing the championship lead perhaps here, depending on how the point situation turns out and where Maximilian Benecke finishes. So the whole point standings could be a completely different picture heading into the next round of Silverstone, unless he can recover a lot more than what he has done so right now. There's a move further back though in the shot. That was Joshua Rogers again trying to make moves stick, and it looks like it has happened there over Mark Lona. So Rogers, he's making the best out of this recovery drive right now, but he needs to get arguably inside the top 20 to be not happy but content with the way the feature race has gone.
I don't think he'll be content with that either, to be honest.
Mean, yeah, but
now then, we had an issue for one of the Red Bull cars. Graham Carroll went over the grass on the exit of turn number 9, and that cost him a bit of time. He almost touched the barrier there, I believe. We'll have a look once again on board. This is Graham Carroll, so he's coming out that corner. The back end steps out, gets onto the grass, and he does touch that barrier, just grazes it. It doesn't appear to have done too much damage to the car, so he seems to have got away with that one. But Graham, that's a bit of heart in mouth moment for him right there.
Yeah, that is so close. Looks like he's gotten away in terms of the damage, though. But if we look back to the race lead, this is the most obvious opportunity that Phil Sell has had, and he does take it. Driver's right-hand side. But the thing is, what does Kevin Harris Jr. do? He backs out, and they might have just negotiated this move fairly there down in towards the bus stop, because Kevin Harris Jr. didn't lose the more than one position there, so he knows that Phil Sell probably had the move complete if they hit the brakes down into the bus stop side by side, and going side by side with your teammate through there is just going to end in tears. So you can see Kevin Harris Jr. backing out, knowing that he's beat. But the thing is, the Red Bull Racing Esports drivers behind were not close enough to be able to capitalize on this. So there we go. Jared Phil Sell, his objective, run for the hills, and Kevin Harris Jr. keep all the sharks behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to have a tough job of that now, because Patrick Holtzman, Sebastian Job, they want to get by as quickly as possible to keep in the draft of that Apex Racing Team car of Phil Sell, Holtzman, and he's forced his way through. Look at that move, great stuff there. And now Job, he's trying to make it, but Kevin Ellis Jr. is not giving this one up without a fight. And the Scotsman down the inside drifts it out of turn number 9 into towards turn number 10, but he's not alongside, so he's going to have to blend in behind. So he's down to 3rd place from 1st on this lap. And Holtzman now, that's exactly what Patrick needed to do. He needed to make that move, make it quick, and then get onto the draft of Jared Phil Sell in front as they come down this front straightaway. And now Sebastian Job all over the back of his former teammate Kevin Ellis Jr. as they go through the right-hander. And look at this now, underneath the rear wing, but he's having to back out of it through the S's. He realizes he's too close through the S's here, but he can get on the power now, try and use the slipstream. But Junior Ellis Jr. has got the slipstream of Holtzman in front, and well, Job is not close enough to make that move and make it stick, so he's going to have to stay in 4th place for the time being. But there's been a little bit of movement further back as well.
Yeah, Franchek made a mistake.
Yeah, Franchek has dropped down to 10th place then, and that was on the run from the S's down towards the boot. So we'll get a replay of this, and well, we'll get a replay of it hopefully at some point. But we'll look back. We'll look back at this move then by Holtzman on Kevin Ellis Jr.
Yeah, a little bit of contact involved in that one, but not what I would say is out of malice or in any way egregious. As you can see, the continued side-by-side through turn 9 between the two of them. That's where Holtzman was able to complete the move. And then once we cycle this one all the way through, you can see them still trying to go bumper to bumper on their way through the final corner. As actually, on the live picture, Sebastian Job has actually headed his way down the inside of Kevin Ellis Jr. So that is actively happening out there on circuit. There we go. We've got it. Sebastian Job inside line from the penultimate corner. They rub doors. Oh, Kevin Ellis Jr. gets shoved out over onto the curb. And here comes Maximilian Benecke then inside line for the final corner. He's not able to make anything work through there. But that's Sebastian Job through Red Bull Racing Esports making the passes as Kevin Ellis Jr. slips even further down. This side-by-side between Hutu and Benecke now on the live pictures. That is Benecke trying to defend the inside line, and he does from Hutu. But Hutu looking aggressive at this stage as well.
And that's what happens when you try and make that move into that final corner down the inside. You have to check yourself up, which compromises your run out of the corner, and that's what we saw exactly. So Benecke able to stay ahead of Hutu, but he wasn't able to take advantage of Ellis Jr. Getting the mistake there through Sebastian Job making his way through. Now we've got plenty of drivers, plenty of action going on. The number 5 car then, Martin Kroenke, has looked back through the carousel there, and it is a smorgasbord of action here. And Thomas Tahala is one of those drivers involved there, as Johan Vaz, Antoine Higeland, Jack Sedgwick, they're all in here in this battle. Sedgwick is trying to make the moves, and we'll see what happened back at the chicane then. And we'll look at this because it was a lovely move from Thomas Tahala. Great stuff from him to be able to gain 2 positions through that corner, but we saw a little bit of rubbing there through the carousel between the two of them as they head on into the boot then. But back to live pictures, and still that queue of traffic together, they are putting under each other under intense pressure. But Thomas Tahala, I say my hat goes off to him for move of the day right there, taking 2 spots on the exit of the bus stop chicane. Yeah,
it was absolutely brilliant stuff. And Thomas, he wasn't a name that really we would consider to be one in this series in the first place. He's really come out of nowhere over the past couple of months, and he's really made an impact. And it's yet another Finnish driver that is very quick indeed. Of course, it seems to be a tradition both in real life and on the sim racing side of things, for that you can have so many talented drivers from one relatively small nation in terms of population. But there's the top 8 up on screen for you now. Jared Filsell leads Holtzman by 1 second. We've got Sebastian Job P3, Kevin Ellis Jr. still trying to hold on to P4 right now, with Maximilian Benecke 5th, Gregor Hutu 6th, Graham Carroll 7th, Martin Kroenke will round out your top 8 here. So right now it looks like on the timing we have a 3-car breakaway at the front of the field. That is Filsell, Holtzman and Job, and now it's this whole entire train for the P4 here as well, involving Benecke, Hutu, Carroll, Kroenke, Williams. You can count in this one as well, as the times start to spread themselves out a little bit. It's not one huge train like it was a little bit earlier on in the race, but still potential for lots and lots of action to happen, and there might just be another flashpoint as well as drivers get desperate.
As we're on board with Kroenke then, the car number 5, working his way through, trying to make the moves. And speaking of making moves, Johan Vaz under pressure now from Antoine Higeland as they're going out of the toe of the boot, heading into this tight right-hander here, turn number 8, the heel, as they're going 2 by 2 through that corner and sorting themselves out. It's Higeland ahead of the 46 car of Johan Vaz, but Vaz making the move back. And look at Jack Sedgwick trying to get involved in this. We're on board with Niles Kirsch here, and Kirsch, well, he's got nowhere to go here in that William Esport car. They're still side by side. Kirsch goes wide. He's off the track there, but they're still side by side, door banging through the corner, and Johan Vaz has lost a ton of time there. He's lost out places as well, and here come 3 wide down the start straight. Tommy Erstgaard and Josh Rogers, the recovering Josh Rogers, now up to 19th. Contact between the two of them, and it's Johan Vaz who comes off the worst there through turn number 1, and he's dropping all the way down to 25th, possibly even coming under pressure for 26th.
2 into 1, more like 3 into 1 doesn't go, but Joshua Rogers is able to get away on that inside. It was Ostgaard and Vaz that had the contact on the outside of the corner there into turn 1, and now we're on board with Jack Sedgwick as he tries to defend position from another recovering Commander driver. That's Mitchell de Jong, who had a terrible race in the sprint race, terrible qualifying, not been the best here in the feature race, but he has picked up a couple of positions here and there. And again, it's another one of your championship contenders that has had an absolutely horrible time here today, but he still has points on the card. Cedric ahead. You've got Anton Hegland further down the line as well. Up in towards turn 7, following very, very closely coming through here. We've seen moves down into the heel. That might just be what Mitchell de Jong is planning, but arguably he doesn't get a good enough run out of turn 7 to make that one a possibility here. So he'll have to stay behind just for a couple of moments longer, and this is what we're used to seeing. From that shot alone, just how stacked together this entire field is. It seems like with about 20 minutes of racing done already, there's still these huge trains going on.
Well, I could tell you that first down to 16th are covered by 10 seconds. That's how close this field is. It's absolutely crazy. But it's what we see week in, week out. Max Benecke we're on board with, riding on board the roof of his Pure Racing Team car. The German trying to catch up and pass Kevin Ellis Jr., who's managed to stay in that 4th place, but he's dropped back a second now to Patrick Holtzman. By the way, your lead gap is 1.3 seconds worth mentioning there as well. So those 2 Red Bull cars, they're not able to make it. But Sebastian Job is actually ahead of Holtzman. That's interesting to point out in that battle in 2nd place. But look at this now, further down, Josh Rogers, he's got the 33 car behind him. And as they go down up the hill, Nels Kush trying to use the slipstream, trying to get in, but can't make that move. But Josh Rogers now, he's got his sights set in front of him. David Novakovsky for 17th, and Mitchell de Jong, the man who was in 2nd place going into this round, right ahead of David Novakovsky. So this battle, it is pretty important, because Josh Rogers, he could do with getting as close as possible to Mitchell de Jong, just to try and minimise the any potential gap in the championship standings here from this race. But it's put with the likes of Benecke, Job and Holtzman up at the front, as well as Phil Sell. His gap's going to be cut down anyway, as looking at this, the 24 on the brakes, not able to make the move. Mitchell de Jong and Sedgwick doing a really good job of being defender and attacker at the same time.
Yeah, very, very good job indeed. And, you know, that is simply a necessity in a series like this one with everyone stacked together. We have had the gap at the front of the field come down a little bit, though. Sebastian Job really putting in the hard yards here to try and edge that gap in. It was a 151 flat from Phil Sell. It was a 150.7 for Sebastian Job. That's a good couple of tenths of a second taken out, and he needs to do that over in all of the laps now before the end of this race if he's going to have a chance, arguably, here on the last lap of the event. It was a 1/10 and a bit second gain on that last lap, and you can see it's been a trend over the last couple as well. Patrick Holtzman, though, starting to lose touch of his teammate. You can see that on the lap time deltas as well. So Sebastian Job is giving the chase, trying to pull Holtzman along here, but with about 4.5 laps, I'd like to say, to go here. Still unlikely here for Sebastian Job, but if there's you know, one opportunity that he has to get a feature race win here in this series, this one's going to be it. Pavel
Franchek, after making that mistake earlier on in this race, he's trying to make amends here. He's in 10th place, but putting all sorts of pressure on David Williams in 9th place as he goes through the chute in towards the turf. This is a battle for 9th and 10th place here on the track. As further down your order, I can see on the timing screen, we've got Josh Rogers and David Novakovsky. They're side by side going through the turn, and it's going to be Josh Rogers who potentially could make the move stick. Novakovsky gets the better run off of the corner because he was wide, but Rogers has got the inside line here, and that's going to be him making the position. So up to 17th now, and crucially behind his teammate Mitchell de Jong, his championship rival, who's in 16th. So that's going to be his next target now. He wants to look forward to Joshua. But David Novakovsky, don't write him off here. He can still put some moves in as we're heading in towards the final 6 minutes of this race. So just a few laps remaining in this one. But still, it's been a great race. Some great moves as well. As look at this, defensive driving ahead now. Jack Sedgwick going to the inside. Mitchell de Jong to the outside of turn number 1. And Sedgwick is going to lose the position, is he? Mitchell de Jong runs wide through turn number 1, and they're still going to be side by side through the S's. You don't really want to be doing this because that's going to slow each other down, and that's allowing Josh Rogers to get a great run on the both of them here. He's in the slipstream now. Can he make the move? Sedgwick going defensive. He's already lost one position to de Jong. He doesn't want to lose another position here to Rogers. Into the chicane. There's a little bump from Rogers there. That puts Sedgwick wide through the final part of the chicane. Hopefully he doesn't end up with a slowdown penalty from that one, but that has concertinaed that whole queue of traffic behind Josh Rogers now, because here comes David Novakovsky trying to make the move into the chute, but nothing forthcoming here. But that was all getting a little bit close, a little bit tight there through the bus stop chicane.
It was, and it might not be done. There's Jamie Fluke on the back of this one, looking to work his way through, and he's got passes for the pickings here right in front of him. Everyone stacked together. This would be a fantastic recovery from the qualifying ban that Jamie Fluke had if he's able to pull off a couple of passes here and there. We're on board with Kamil Franchak, though, for P10 as he looks to chase down the commander driver of David Williams. He got a little bit of oversteer coming through the heel there, and that is just how the cars have been behaving throughout this entire race, and of course the sprint race as well. They are very much on edge with the track temp being as high as it is. It's up to 44 degrees now. Of course, that's actually a little bit cooler than we had in the qualifying in the start of the sprint race, where it was more like in the 50s. So the dynamic sort of sky coming into full effect here as we get later on into the afternoon. That temperature can drop off and give these drivers a little bit of an easier time. But if you're in that particular train that we've just seen, that is not an easy time by the dictionary definition.
But look at that, Mitchell de Jong has been able to make a breakaway of it from this train of cars. And Jack Sedgwick now going to be a bit more of a sitting duck here because he's 0.8 of a second behind de Jong. And here comes Rogers now. We're on board with him through the S, as you can see how much just those little adjustments having to make to the steering as they go up the hill now, and it is uphill all the way to the bus stop chicane. There you can see the damage from that little bit of contact earlier on the previous lap. And look how much speed Rogers is able to carry through the bus stop chicane into the carousel once again. With Sedgwick, he's shown at times that he can make those moves and have a good run in this series. It just becomes unfortunate sometimes with some of the things that happen in the races. But right now, Sedgwick showing his all against Joshua Rogers, championship leader going into this round, to go through the tour once again. British driver versus Australian. So it's the battle of the Commonwealth. On the brakes then from Rogers, dive to the inside, nearly making a move but not making it stick for the time being as they're heading up the hill into the left-hander. And still Sedgwick holding on to that position. Really good driving from Jack, and that queue of cars just waiting behind patiently to make some positions. But up near towards the front of your field, Franchak still pretty close but not able to make any moves on David Williams. But we've just had it pointed out, Connery, that gap at the front has closed up once again, but it's only 1/10 of a second between the two of them on the last lap.
I still want to keep a close eye on this one, though, because Sebastian Job, you know, he can, with the pace that he's going right now, he probably won't be in the position to capitalize on the during the last lap here. But if he can just put that sort of bad thought into Jared Philsell's head that Sebastian Job is catching here, then it might start to unsettle him just a little bit. 0.6 of a second is the gap coming up through the bus stop for the second to last time here as Sebastian Job tries to search for his first feature race win of this entire series. We look back to the couple of the battles that we were looking at previously as well. We can see Graham Carroll having to put up the defense on Martin Kroenke here as they head their way through the turn 6 chute here. And Kroenke, of course, he's had some pretty decent results in this series so far. He had the sprint and feature race win at Mid-Ohio, don't forget. So that was a particularly good day for him. But the rest of the races have been mixed to good, I would say. He's just been consistently inside that top 10, just getting the points here and there. There's a side-by-side battle behind, though. That's David Williams working his way through on Kamil Franchak there.
And Jack
you've also
Sedgwick
got
as well, yeah.
two battles simultaneously with both the same teams here. Jack Cedric and Joshua Rogers now is the picture that we're watching on the way up towards turn 9. Rogers outside looking for the cut back through the corner, but very good defensive driving there from Jack Cedric, just sealing off that line on the exit of the corner, just slowing it up deliberately a little bit so as to deny the line from Rogers.
Yeah, that's great defensive driving. We've seen that throughout the season with many of the drivers in the series. But we are on the last lap now of this race. So really, it's all or nothing here in this week 6 of the Porsche Esports Supercup. As they're heading up through the top of the S's. Your leaders, they're not going to be close enough to make the move, so we'll look at Joshua Rogers there, and Rogers trying to get the run through the S's, through up the hill. He's got the slipstream, he's making it count, but Cedric holding an inside line, making Rogers go the long way around, and Rogers holding it around the outside as well. Cedric trying to get the cut back. Great stuff there from Rogers to hold his line there and to stop Cedric getting the cut back. So one final position gained for Josh Rogers in that one. He's going to be too far behind to make any moves in front of him. We'll look further forward because it's Gregor Hutu and Max Beneke. They're battling out for 5th place in this one, and well, you look at this, both of them former world champions here on iRacing. Gregor Hutu, World Championship Grand Prix Series winner. Max Beneke, World Championship GT Series, the VRS World Championship GT Series, don't forget. As well, the final couple of corners to come now. Phil Sell under pressure from Job, but it's not going to be enough. Job needed another lap in this one, but still can cause a mistake in the final corner. Will Jared Philsell hold on to his car here through the final corner? The answer is going to be a categoric yes. So across the line for round 6 of the Porsche Esports Super Cup, it is Jared Philsell from Australia. What a fantastic drive from the Apex Racing Team driver to take victory in the feature race here.
Sim races, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive iRacing World Championship. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Supercup.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to Silverstone, welcome to Great Britain, and welcome to another exciting afternoon's worth of racing in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. We are getting ourselves ready for qualifying, which will be taking place in just a few moments' time. Will Vincent here as ever, as well as your commentators Paul Smith and Connery Maddock. We've got a lot to talk about, and the biggest thing to note, of course, is the championship standings after what was an absolutely crazy weekend out at Watkins Glen International. Joshua Rogers still leads the championship, but the gap between himself and Max Beneke is now down to just 7 points, and Mitchell de Jong in third is only 27 points back from his teammate Josh Rogers. So as we enter Silverstone, the rest of your top 10 up on your screen right now. As we enter Silverstone, round number 7 of the championship, what we've learned over the last couple of rounds is that racking up those penalty points over the course of the season will come back to bite you in the backside as well. We've only got one driver today who is likely to not do qualifying. That's Sebastian Dunkel in terms of the penalty standings and the way they work. But the last 2 rounds have seen both Rogers, Beneke and De Jong all have some form of troubles along the way. And Paul, it was an exciting race a couple of weeks ago at Watkins Glen International, but now we go to Silverstone and we head ourselves to the new Silverstone wing layout for the first time ever in an iRacing World Championship event.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this event. From the very limited racing that I've done myself around here, it is a brilliant venue for racing. You can have really close action, you can have overtaking. It has pretty much everything: slow speed corners, high speed corners, long straights for your slipstreaming as well. And this is just going to bring us potentially one of the most exciting races. Having said that though, Watkins Glen wasn't that bad last time out as well, and it really did bring that championship close together.
Yeah, as there is a look then down the famous hangar straight away underneath the Johnny Walker Bridge. Having a look there at Alejandro Sanchez, 3rd place for the time being in terms of our practice session. Let's flick through and show you a couple of other drivers as we are working, as we say, on that practice session. There is Gregor Hutu, the multi-time iRacing World Champion of Grand Prix Racing in the number 66 Team Redline car. And the thing is, Connery, in some ways, this race is the great leveler because people have not had anywhere near as much time to practice for a track like this, or they won't have the same muscle reflex memory as some of the tracks like Watkins Glen that some of these drivers have been racing on for almost 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. New Silverstone being new, of course, to the iRacing service because we had the old layout for the longest time. So it's certainly a new challenge for some of the drivers out there here today. Of course, Gregor Hutu being one of them. And, well, of course, there is one of your championship contenders as well, Maximilian Beneke. He needs a very, very good finish here, and he might, just might, be able to get himself the championship lead before today is done.
Yeah, he has, though, got to beat this driver. It is Josh Rogers in the number 92 car, heading down that hangar straight away into Stowe Corner. Stowe, of course, famous probably most for about 10 years ago, almost to the day when Michael Schumacher ended up having brake failure and broke his leg, which cost another year of Ferrari not being able to win the Formula One World Drivers title. Then you work yourself through club, and this is where you essentially then go onto the new Silverstone wing. We're on board with Josh Rogers then, and I just want to actually listen in quickly. Yeah, they are having to downshift there a couple of gears, and that's a little bit different, Paul, to, of course, what people's been seeing in Formula One over the last couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to point out, for me personally, Stowe is most famous for Nigel Mansell making his breathtaking move on Nelson
He didn't
Piquet.
do it into Stowe, he did it on the hangar straight.
They took wheels in Stowe, therefore it was in Stowe Corner.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be, this car, it's got limited downforce on this. You've got the engine right slung out over the rear wheels of the car. So, these drivers are going to have a challenge through some of these corners, and you're going to be seeing them modulating the throttle and having to use that throttle very carefully on the exit soon of these corners. Don't forget as well, the Porsche Supercup is racing at Silverstone this weekend.
Yes, it is, of course, one of the additional races. I hate saying support series because, of course, the two series are completely different, but it's one of the other race events that takes part as part of a Grand Prix weekend. Live timing and scoring will be available once our sprint race starts at RaceSpotTV /timing, and there's a look then at Marin Cholak just heading himself towards the start finish line in the Altus Esports car. We've got about a minute left before we head ourselves to the qualifying, and qualifying at this track, Paul, could actually cost a couple of drivers a lot in terms of their patience, because they're so easy to get an off track here, especially in that wing layout, but then also, as we're just seeing Jared Filsell do at the Maggots Beckett's complex.
And as I found out to my great annoyance through Maggots and Beckett's, you can even pick up a slow down penalty if you cut too much to the inside of the corners. So it can really cost you. And with the limited laps that they have for qualifying, of course, only 2 laps to set a qualifying time in, the pressure is on such a long lap. You're looking at just over 2 minutes for a lap around here. So these drivers, they've got to be really on it for today's qualifying.
Yeah, indeed. So that is that's practice over. It's time for qualifying. Paul Connery, take it away.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So we're looking forward to this one. I've been looking forward to this one since Watkins Glen. It's certainly going to be a really interesting and exciting racing here today. And Silverstone, it's one of my favourite tracks. The only thing, Connery, that they can't simulate around here is the smell of chips just wafting across the track as you're walking through the venue. But it's a great historic track to bring this series to.
Yeah, absolutely. A historic track with a slightly new face, it has to be said here, at least on iRacing, as the drivers get out there on their sort of installation laps here. Of course, it's 2 minutes under the regular pace. It's going to be a little bit more than that as these drivers try to get their bearings and try to set themselves for their first flying lap here today. And well, this racetrack is going to be a little bit more forgiving, excuse me, in terms of the racing that does tend to happen here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. It is close quarters action, it's bumper to bumper, but the track is pretty wide here, so you can get those 2 wides and those 3 wides done in relatively safe fashion. So I think this is the absolutely perfect track for racing such as what we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. So drivers going out on their outlap now, preparing themselves, preparing the tyres and the car to make sure it's working at the prime optimal range for themselves. And you've got championship contenders, Maximilian Benecke certainly taking part. A man who's been challenging through the first half of the season until he got a penalty is Jamie Fluke for Apex Racing Team, and we've also gotten on board with him as well, so we'll be able to see him at work. We'll bring you that at some point, hopefully. But Jamie, he's warming up his tyres, he's trying to get the car prepared for the start of his flying lap, and it's important, Connery, to really get the launch out of Club Corner, and on your outlap you can take that nice wide line to cut in, get on the power nice and early for the charge down to Abbey.
Yes, you can. You just gotta add every single advantage possible. Now, ending his way down the hangar straight towards Stowe Corner, one of the most fantastic corners on this racetrack, it has to be said. You can carry so much speed down into here. Of course, on this lap, Jamie Fluke will decide to take a more of a casual approach to it, as to not put too much load through those tires. But as he slowly starts to pick up the pace now, coming down through the left and through the right, and then you got to start thinking about going 110% out of Club Corner to start your flying lap here with Jamie Fluke.
There we go then, Jamie Fluke down towards Abbott for the first time then on his flying lap, and he is really trying to push hard through Farm Curve in towards Village now. Get your braking right for it. So easy to lock a brake, which is exactly what he's done there through the right-hander. Now into the loop. It's double apex left-hander, really slow on the entry to the first part, then get on the power, modulate your throttle through the second part, carry the speed all the way down the Wellington straight here now as they're heading towards Brooklands, back on towards the old track, and onto the brakes hard. Carry the speed as much as you can. You can carry a late apex through Brooklands there, and then Luffield, you can take a couple of different lines through Luffield. You can even hug the apex all the way through, or you can veer it out and get the run out the corner through Woodcut, absolutely flat out in this car, and then heading towards what used to be the first corner around here, Cops Corner. Dab of brakes, down a couple of gears, through there. Don't run too far wide or you'll end up with an instant point and invalidate your lap. Into Maggots now and Beckett's. Right over the curb there, left. Each time just progressively slowing the car down. And then onto the power again. Through Chapel, the left-hander, and the hanger straight, down the hanger straight there. And Jamie, well, he'll be looking to try and get a really good lap time out of this one as he's heading into Stoke Corner now. This long, fast, it's quite fast corner is this in whatever car you're in. Through there now into Vale. Slow left-hander for him. Get it in on the apex because you want to get your line right for club. Tighter entry, open out and then tight exit. Don't run out too far wide over the line and across the line. 2:03.902 for Jamie Fluke. That's putting 5th. Oh well, now 6th at the moment. Max Beneke, your fastest driver, ahead of Joshua Rogers.
Yeah, that is a big storyline to talk about. Joshua Rogers, P2 in qualifying right now, although, of course, in every single Porsche Esports Supercup event that we do, it's going to be the sprint race grid reversed based on qualifying here. So qualifying is just for those bonus points here inside of that top 8. So 1 to 8 will get reversed by the time that sprint race grid arrives. So technically right now, it will be Jamie Fluke actually on pole position if these qualifying results carry through all the way to the end, but drivers do have an extra flying lap here to try and improve on their banker.
Absolutely. Beneke's given up on his second attempt. He's backed right off there, so that'll be him done for qualifying. Joshua Rogers, the championship leader, he is coming through the exit of Chapel and down the hangar straight again. So we're coming towards the end of the second laps here for these drivers now, and we'll start seeing whether there can be any improvement. Quite a hot track temperature, 43 degrees track temperature in Celsius. That'll be into the hundreds in the Fahrenheit. So these drivers, they'll be pushing, but the tyre temperatures will be rising up as he goes through club once again. And out the final corner now, will he improve his time? And the answer is ever so slightly. And that does put him on pole position.
Yeah, it does ever so slightly, but just enough to get Joshua Rogers to first in qualifying here. Will be cycled back to P8 by the time the sprint race arrives. Of course, that's a big moment there for Patrick Holtzman as he heads his way out the final corner. Across the line, he sets a lap time good enough for 10th place on the starting grid here today. I'm just having a look to see how close everyone is in terms of their qualifying times here. It's the top 21 cars that are separated by about half a second here in qualifying, so that's how close everyone is, and it's a theme that we've been seeing throughout this series. Alexander Thieb now for Pure Racing Team, the German, heading his way through the final sector here. Club corner, last corner. Can he improve on P15? Big slide out of the final corner, but he's not able to improve position there, is the German of Alexander Thieb. So with about 40 seconds left in qualifying, drivers trying to get themselves to the line to try and get themselves the best lap possible. Of course, we're still waiting for Kazuki Umeshima here to head his way across the line to set a lap time. I don't think he'll even have enough time to do so.
Yeah, I think he's a little too far back. He invalidated his first lap in qualifying, and with time running out here, only 15 seconds remaining, then time is definitely going to run out for him. So an absolute nightmare for Kazuki in qualifying, and the clock will strike down to 0 then, and we'll be getting set for the grid for the sprint race here at Silverstone. And so let's take you through what your grid is, and it is as of course the top 8 inverse. So it is Sebastian Job who is on pole position ahead of Graham Carroll, Alejandro Sanchez 3rd with Jeremy Butluck 4th, Jared Filsell, the man who did so well last time out at Watkins Glen, he's 5th with Mitchell de Jong 6th, Max Beneke and Joshua Rogers 7th and 8th. Then the rest of the drivers qualifying, starting where they qualified. So Kevin Ellis Jr., Patrick Holtzman, with Niles Koch and Martin Cronkite 12th. Greg Hutu alongside him is Jamie Fluke, Alexander Thieb, Jack Sedgwick 15th and 16th. Tommy Erstgaard 17th ahead of Lauren Heinrich, with Ricardo Castrolado and Moritz Lerner rounded out your top 20. Marin Cholak and Thomas Tahala in 22nd. David Williams, Marcus Jensen, Antoine Higelar, Marty Piatella, Ilka Harpala, Bobby Zelensky, Dion Verge, Sebastian Dunkel, who wasn't allowed to qualify, and then Kazuki Umeshima rounds out your 31 car grid. But Connery, quick thoughts before we get ready for this race. It should be a good one, this sprint race.
Absolutely. It's everyone involved in the championship, involved in what was top 4 in qualifying, but with the swap around, they start a little bit further back in this situation. So it's going to be very interesting to see who out of the likes of Rogers, Beneke, De Jong, Phil Sell can file their way through the easiest towards those podium positions.
Okay, so drivers setting themselves up, ready for the start here, and it's an all Red Bull front row. Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll, revs rise for the sprint race, the Porsche Esports Supercup at Silverstone. Good start from Sebastian Job from front row of the grid. Graham Carroll's having to slot in front of the Coanda car as they go through Abbey for the first time into Farm. Down into Village. This is where one of the early opportunities are available to drivers to make moves and also have instant in this one. But so far, everybody seems to be behaving through the grid. They're going 3 wide through the loop, and you can get away with that, but you need to sort yourselves out, because then onto the Wellington Straight for the first time. Look at the pack of cars as they run through. Great stuff to see, but at the moment it is Sebastian Job in the lead ahead of Graham Carroll, but Jeremy Bootloop is putting the pressure on early here in this one, and he's trying to make the most of this opportunity. That reverse grid does help these drivers, and with it being such a tight grid as well, Connery, it means that opportunities are few and far between, and you have to take them.
You do have to take them. It's been a very, very sort of cool, calm, and collected first lap, which is not what we're used to seeing here in this series. We've seen our fair share of bumping and banging when it comes to first lap affairs in the Porsche Esports Supercup. But this time around, everyone seems to be okay, at least for this first half of the first lap here. Onto the hangar straight now for the first time. You do see a driver that's pulled off to the side there. That is Alexander Thebe, who's actually gotten himself a slow down penalty for the Maggots and Beckett section. So that is a huge issue for him, and it's exactly what you talked about, Paul, during the pre-show, where you also fell foul to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy to pick up that particular penalty, but yeah, he will push on, and it'll be a recovery drive for him. Your front three then across the line, it is Job, Carroll and Bootloop. Alejandro Sanchez with Mitchell de Jong in 5th, Dragfil Sell, Josh Rogers in 7th, Max Beneke in 8th. So those two have switched positions, and they have got Phil Rogers ahead of Beneke. That's crucial for him, just to get a few extra points in the championship here, with it being so close. Even though the sprint race you get half points compared to the main feature race, you're certainly still worthy getting those points. Jamie Fluke has had an issue down at the loop. He's got damage on his car, and he's having to get back up and running.
Yes, he has, and well, that is unfortunate for him. We have a change of decision a little bit further back, though. Jack Cedric and Moritz Luna were just battling a little bit here. Ricardo Castellillo trapped on the outside for Luffield in that number 74 car. Aaron Cholak trying to file his way through on him, but Castellillo is putting up a relatively decent fight here, coming up towards that run down the old pit straight towards Cop's Corner, and Cholak still on the inside here. Castellillo is forced to go deep on the outside. Is he able to keep it on the racing surface? Just barely on the curb, but that's Cholak through.
And David Williams, we've just seen, got contact from behind, and Marcus Jensen, I believe it was, who just that little bit of contact. The car's loaded up there, so the rear end is quite light, and it's so easy, just the slightest of touches, and they're on the go. And a big crash, including Alexander Thebe, Ilka Harpala, and Kazuki Mishima as well. And this is down in Beckett. This is not a place where you have a small accident here, and we'll surely get a replay of that up on screen for you shortly. Here it comes then. So it was side by side with Jensen there, and then just a contact there between the two of them, Thebe and Umashima, I believe. But we'll look up for that, because this lead battle still pretty close together on board, with Jeremy Bootloop and Jeremy trying his best to keep the pressure on here, but Graham Carroll is not letting him by.
Not at all. So all stacked up together here at the front of the field in this sprint race. Of course, we have about 10.5 minutes to go to sort out all the differences here. Well, the only driver that has actually gained position, well, there's a couple of drivers that have gained positions on their qualifying. Here we have Joshua Rogers. He's up to P7 from P8. So he's starting to make moves already, and starting to make moves now, because that's the inside line. He's wrestled away from Jared Filsell. Turns to the outside for Luffield, though, as he tries to follow his way through, but he's struggling for grip. Has to duck back in line. Look to get the run off the corner. That is a fantastic run off the corner for the Australian. Inside for the little right-hand kink on the way down towards Cop's corner. Rogers has the line, but does Filsell have anything to fight with? That is a resounding no.
Absolutely. So it is Rogers ahead of Filsell then, and he's made that move stick, and they're going into Maggots and Beckett's now, and well, Rogers will be looking ahead to Mitchell de Jong, another one of his championship contenders, and he will be trying to gain on him and trying to gain those positions. But now behind Filsell, Max Benecke is trying to put pressure on Jared Filsell, so he's seen how Rogers has made it past Filsell, and he'll be trying to get ahead of him to keep up with the championship contenders. We've got to the stage of the season, the second half of the season, where time and races is running out for these drivers to start making some money moves and to try and get those positions. So as they come through club once again, we'll look up front. Alejandro Sanchez, Jeremy Bootloop in towards turn number 1 and 2, and well, Sanchez, he's in a really good position at the moment. He's not always come off best in this series so far, but he's having a really good opening race here, Connery, and he's making the most of his opportunities, but he is coming under pressure from Mitchell de Jong behind.
Yep, Alejandro Sanchez, of course, he's currently sitting P15 in the championship standing. His best result is a P9 in the main race of round 4. So P4 he sits at right now in this particular sprint race, which will set him up very well for that main race. And he seems to be hanging on to position here despite the very, very quick competition behind him. Of course, you already mentioned Mitchell de Jong. You also have Joshua Rogers that's even further behind in this situation. We do have Filsell versus Benecke, though, for P7 and P8 here. Benecke, as it stands, will be, well, Joshua Rogers, excuse me, will be extending the gap over Benecke if this race finishes as it is right now, which is not what Benecke would have wanted at all. He would have wanted to get himself a start on the right foot here for this particular day of racing, but it hasn't exactly gone that way. Still inside the top 10, so an okay points haul, but you're losing just a little bit to your main championship rival.
Looking down the hanger straight, there he is, the race leader Sebastian Job, the man from the UK, into Stowe corner once again, and he's got his teammate behind. But Graham Carroll, if he gets an opportunity to make a move, he will make it stick, that's for sure. As they're going into Vale and then Club once again. Get on the power as much as you can, as early as you can, to carry the speed across the start and finish line. Avoid that sausage curb. That will upset your car and run you out wide out the final corner and put you in all manner of problems there. But looking back here, Mitchell de Jong now, he is putting the pressure really on Alejandro Sanchez ahead of him. Into the loop once again. And you can dictate, if you're Alejandro Sanchez in the loop there, you can dictate what the car behind does on the mid-corner apex, but it's the run out the corner that Alejandro needs to be able to keep ahead of de Jong as they're heading into Brooklands once again. But so far, De Jong not able to make the move and make it stick. We'll look further back though, because drivers still involved in battles further down, and Tommy Erstgaard, he's looking as well. But yeah, there's action all over, and Beneke, he's looking busy now, Connery.
Yeah, just sitting in that slipstream of Jared Phil-Sell, and Beneke, I think he feels that he has to get a move on at this point, because these guys do have a decent gap to the next car down the line. That will be Josh Rogers, so they're starting to lose the draft of the leading train here. So Beneke, not wanting to wait around, perhaps he'll try to set up the move, try and get that run out at Chapel, and then make it side by side at least down into Stowe Corner. But I don't think he's got a good enough run this time around. Meanwhile, the two Coanda drivers, Mitchell de Jong and Joshua Rogers, will they negotiate a swap down into Stowe Corner? Well, classically, we have no team orders as part of VRS Coanda Simsport. We saw that in the VRS GTR Racing World Championship just a week ago. It might just have to be the same here today as well.
Oh, it'll definitely be the same. That's without a doubt. This team operates well and allows the drivers to race, especially in this series. It's an individual championship at the end of the day. There is no team's championship for here. The Porsche Esports Supercup, it's all about the drivers here. And Josh Rogers putting the pressure on his teammate Beneke, putting the pressure on Phil-Sell as well, as they head into Abbey and then Farm Curve. And those two, they've been pretty much together now for the last couple of laps. And Beneke, he wants to get that move done sooner rather than later, because time is running out. We've already got just 4 minutes remaining in this race. And these drivers, if they want to make any moves, because remember, the grid positions for the next race are decided by the results of this race. If they want to start further up the grid, they need to make moves and make them stick now, Connery.
Yep, you absolutely do. Of course, coming up to 3.5 minutes to go in this one, and well, the positions for the podium positions haven't really changed all that much. Just Jeremy Bootloop up from P4 into P3. It is still a Red Bull Racing Esports 1-2 at this moment in time. Sebastian Job, Graham Carroll doing all they can to try and hold on to that one. Beneke, I think it's just going to be a matter of time before he makes the move over Jared Phil-Sell for P7, but you can see Sebastian Job, Graham Carroll, absolutely fantastic stuff from them in this sprint race. But Jeremy Bootloop, he might have a little bit of a last hurrah here if he's given the opportunity. Meanwhile, you can see further back in the shot as you see those Coanda cars just go for a little bit of lawn mowing on their way out of Chapel. You see Rogers and de Jong here. Rogers, he just looked for a move there, just sensed it a little bit, but decided to back out. He has the better run through the middle of the corner. He can get that speed off of the exit and then look to make the move into the Vale chicane. But de Jong playing a little bit defensive here, trying to keep his teammate behind him. Of course, he's involved in this championship as well, so he doesn't want to be giving up easy positions. Out of the final corner and across the line they will go with about 2.5 minutes remaining. Still undecided here for P5, still undecided for P7 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Abbey once again. Farm Curve, the left-hander, then into, look at Village there, down the inside, late lunge. If de Jong can hold it around the outside there, he's got the inside for the loop, and he can try and squeeze Joshua Rogers out the way, and that's exactly what he's done there. But he's going to have the worst run off of the loop. He's going to have to go defensive down the Wellington Straight, which is exactly what he's doing, because here comes Rogers now, down the outside. Is he going to make this move stick? He can hold it round the outside. He's got the inside for Luffield, and that's the prime real estate that you want there. De Jong is being left hung out to dry. This is giving Phil-Sell an opportunity as well, but they're still side by side through the exit of Luffield into Woodcote Corner. It's all right-handers here with Cops next as well, so Rogers is in the prime position in terms of the inside line, but de Jong can carry the speed around the outside, carry the speed on him, keep alongside. There's still a slight overlap, and I think Rogers is just ahead, is he? Well, into Maggots now they go, and finally they sort themselves out. Unbelievable racing between the two of them, but Rogers has finally made that move stick. But look at that, Phil-Sell and Beneke, they are on the boot lid there, but take away Connery. Take away the replay.
Yeah. You can see as their little side-by-side moment, their big side-by-side moment, excuse me, on the live pictures as well. Jared Philsel's actively trying to make his way through, but you can just see the start of that move. Rogers, very aggressive move down the inside of his teammate there, and fantastic racecraft between the two of them to keep that clean throughout the entire sequence. Just shows the standard of racing here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. As we do return to those live pictures, you can see behind, actually, that's Beneke and Kroenke actually deciding to have a little bit of a fight. Beneke has lost so much time over this past lap and has been brought back into the clutches now of Martin Kroenke as he tries to search for a line through Abbey, up through Farm Corner, left-hander into Village. Kroenke will have the inside line here, commits on the brakes. Does the co-hander drive up, but he's overdone it, and there's contact there between himself and Beneke, and that allows Kevin Ellis Jr. to gain 2 spots.
Yeah, the Scotsman making the move. We're on the white flag lap, so there's no time remaining. This is going to be it now. If you make your moves, make them stick now. We'll have a look at the replay of that incident down into Village. But what that has allowed is Kevin Ellis Jr. to make the move up and gain 2 positions there. Beneke still battled it out with Kroenke as we'll... he's allowed him to go past then on live pictures. But definitely those two sorting themselves out. Near the front, Jeremy Bootloop has kept the pressure on Graham Carroll. Graham Carroll's fallen back from his teammate at the front. And here comes Bootloop now, trying to get the run out of Cop's corner. It's going to be a bit risky making the move into Maggots and Beckett. But at the moment, they'll stay as they are as we're heading towards the end of the lap here. Just about a quarter of the lap to go. So not really many overtaking opportunities left. Into Vale and Club is about the only 2 left. Alejandro Sanchez now getting the great run down the hanger straight. He wants that 3rd place back, and Bootloop going defensive then into Stowe Corner. Holds on to the position for the time being, but up at the front, it's been a great drive from pole position. And it's going to be a great win in this sprint race of the Porsche Esports Supercup. For Sebastian Job, he comes around Club Corner for the final time. He'll see the checkered flag, and he takes race win in the sprint race here of the Porsche Esports Supercup from Silverstone. Across the line, the rest of the drivers go. What a good bit of battling we had in that race. Still battles gone on further down your order as well. But Connery, really good, respectful racing. The fact that Martin Kroenke allowed Beneke back past, that shows the gentleman driving there.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it means the stewards can take that as a mitigating factor as well when it comes to penalties, instant points, whatever, when it comes towards the end of the race. But fantastic job from Sebastian Job from pole position all the way to the checkered flag, leading the race throughout. It's a fantastic 1-2 here for Red Bull Racing Esports. As a result, it'll be a Red Bull 1-2 for the starting grid.
Well, yeah, well, speaking of results, let's quickly talk you through those. Sebastian Job, the winner then, ahead of Graham Carroll. Jeremy Bootloop in 3rd place ahead of Alejandro Sanchez, we saw there. Josh Rogers 5th with Mitchell de Jong 6th. Jared Philsell, he won't be too happy with that, finishing down in 7th place. Patrick Holtzman 8th with Kevin Ellis Jr. Finishing where he started in 9th, and Max Beneke falling down the order down to 10th place. Martin Kroenke 11th place ahead of Gregor Hutu in 12th. 13th for Tommy Erstgaard ahead of Lauren Heinrich. Jack Sedgwick, quite race from him, in 15th with Moritz Lerner. 16th, Marin Cholak 17th, up a few positions from his starting place. And then 18th, Ricardo Castroleda. Antoine Hugelar 19th with Bobby Zelensky moving up through the field into 20th place. Niels Kush 21st ahead of Marcus Jensen. Thomas Tehela in 23rd ahead of Sebastian Dunkel. Dion Vergers up to 25th in the end. El Kahapla 26th with Jamie Fluke. We saw with the incident down to 27th. He'll be not happy with that. Kazuki Yamashima 28th. Alexander Thebe 29th. David Williams 30th. And then one driver finishing 5 laps down, Matti Piatella.
Well, there we are. That's the first of our heats in the book for this race. That was the sprint race, and of course that will set the starting order for heat number 2, which will start in just 3 minutes time. Well, we had a couple of big moments in that race. And I think the big ones, of course, was Joshua Rogers gaining a couple of positions. We saw Mitchell de Jong have that battle going on at the end as well, but also we had the slowdown penalty. We were so enthralled in that battle pool between what we saw between de Jong and his teammate Rogers that we completely missed the opportunity to find the slowdown penalty for Max Benecke, and it's uncharacteristic for him as he was so close, he was in touching distance, but now he's got a lot of hard work to do. You've got to say, however, it was good by Martin Kroenke even, to give that place back after the two had that incident.
Yeah, you're getting your world champions mixed up there. But yeah, definitely. Max Benecke, I think, has found out what a few drivers found out on the opening lap. Take too much of the last right-hander in Beckett on the curb, and you end up with a slowdown penalty. And that hurt him, not as bad as some of those drivers on that opening lap, but still, it hurt him getting a good starting position for this feature race here today. And, you know, we talk about instance, there was the Alexander Thieb, Kazuki Umashima instant as well through Maggots and Beckett, so Jamie Fluke ended up off track as well. So a few little instances here, I say little, that Umashima and Thieb one wasn't little, but still, generally, driving standards, actually really good in this opening race.
Yeah, I agree, and currently what we have seen is that overtaking has been difficult at points, and you've got to work for your passes. To go back with that long battle we saw between the two teammates at Coanda, they had to essentially battle it out for about half the lap. I can see all the Coanda drivers are in one shot right now. They had to work for it, and you've got to do that because this track does lend itself to a long period of side-by-side.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be committed on any move that you decide to take. There's no point in just sort of, you know, half doing it, half not, and then just all of a sudden, all you've done is just lost time and you haven't even brought it side by side with your competitors. You just have to know the objective and just go for it. That doesn't mean completely send it down the inside of someone and ram them off the road, but it does require a sort of committed, aggressive move to try and make passes here. We saw that with Joshua Rogers. We saw that potentially with Martin Kroenke, although two very different outcomes in that case.
There was a little bit of battling for the two Red Bull Racing Esports drivers, but none of the other drivers was able to use their horns over the flying cars of Red Bull Racing Esports that finished P1 and P2 in your sprint race. The feature race, though, is coming up. Let's head yourself to the grid for that one. Paul Connery, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, heading towards the grid for this feature race now. 30 minutes around this magnificent venue. And, of course, the winner of this feature race will find themselves $1,000 richer. Second and third will also get prize money, but the grid then, just to quickly recap, is the results from race 1. So Sebastian Job in the pole position ahead of Graham Carroll. Jeremy Bootloop is on third place ahead of Alejandro Sanchez. Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong on the third row with Jared Filsell, Patrick Holtzman, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Max Benecke rounding out the top 10 of the grid. We haven't got much time, so we'll just fire through the rest of the grid. And you'll see Benecke 10th place, Hutu down in 12th as well. You've got drivers trying to make a recovery drive near the back as well. David Williams, Jamie Fluke being two of those, along with Kazuki Umashima. So definitely going to be a tricky race, but the drivers now getting themselves onto the grid, ready for the feature race here in the Porsche Esports Supercup. And they will be looking towards that gantry, that starter's gantry. The lights will come on, the revs will rise. Long hold, but away we go, and I think there's a jump start for Jared Filsell further back, but away we go then, and it is Sebastian Job who takes the lead ahead of Graham Carroll, and Jeremy Bootloop slotting into third place yet again. Great jump there from Joshua Rogers to get himself up into fourth place ahead of Alejandro Sanchez, and it's going to be De Jong trying to put the pressure on. Will everybody make it through this time? They did the first race. Let's see if they do. Well, Dion Burgess has a little incident further back, so he's caught up in something there. But drivers coming through, and still it's De Jong and Sanchez working together, trying to make the moves, and De Jong trying to make the move on his teammate now. Not quite going to be alongside enough there, so it's going to be ahead of Sanchez, and Beneke looking to make the pass on Patrick Holtzman behind these as well. Great early action. The front three are making a little bit of a breakaway of it, and they need to take the opportunity while they can to get that gap out at the front, because the rest of them are behind now and wanted to get through. Too wide further down your field. That classic shot, the camera shot through Cop's corner, and these drivers, they're going at it hammer and tongs, that's for sure, throughout this field. But Connery, great start there from Rogers to get the jump on Sanchez early on, but I do believe there was a jump start for Jared Filsell in that.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see whether he comes down onto the pit lane within the next 3 laps or not. So we don't have any immediate confirmation of that, but that's exactly what he'll have to do if he has gotten himself a jump start here. But riding on the back of Sebastian Job here, you can see that view back to his teammate. That's exactly what he wants to see here. So Carroll likely not to be too aggressive with him when it comes to an attempted pass. And I've already said about how you need to be aggressive here to even be able to make passes, and you were absolutely right, Paul. That is a jump start if I ever saw one for Sol.
Yep, so Filsell having to take the long trek through pit lane. Interestingly though, that pit entry is actually shorter on the track across the start and finish line. I'm sure iRacing officials will be keeping an eye on that towards the end of the race in case somebody tries that on the last lap. But yeah, he's dropping down the order then as he has to go at pit lane speed limit. So the rest of the field now working through. Beneke in 8th place. He is trying to get ahead of Patrick Holtzman. He's got Tommy Erskard behind him as well. And look further back as there's a slow moving number 18. That's Antoine Hugelat. He's dropping down the order as well. Jamie Fluke, look at this, great start from Fluke. He started down in 27th. He's up to 17th already. He's a man on a mission here, Connery.
Yeah, he is, and doing an absolutely fantastic job so far in this one. He had a little bit of a look over Marcus Jensen over the previous couple of corners, but wasn't able to do anything when it comes to getting ahead of that number 12 car. So the status quo right now will be maintained. Meanwhile, we do have Thomas Tetala here a little bit further back, currently trying to defend from Marti Piatella. So it's the battle of the Finns on the way down to Maggots and Beckett, but we'll have a little bit of a look further forward towards the front of your field. It's 2 Red Bull Racing Esports, then of course 3 VRS Coanda Simsports. Josh Rodgers going to be trying to file his way through on his French teammate of Jeremy Bootloop here, but as we've already mentioned, no team orders at Coanda. They're free to fight this one out unless Bootloop decides to let Josh Rodgers through regardless. But down in towards what is going to be the Vale chicane here, and then up towards Club Corner. Everyone's still stacked together right at the front of this field here, and now is the question that if Jeremy Bootloop does have the pace here, maybe to have a little bit of a go at Graham Carroll, Joshua Rogers' job is basically just to follow through behind in the tyre tracks of his teammate.
We've had reports of Martin Cronkite making contact with Kevin Ellis Jr. You've also had Jamie Fluke has dropped back down the order He's down to 27th, 26th now, so absolute nightmare for him down at Stowe Corner. Looking on my timing screen, but we've been keeping an eye on this battling that's going on, and you can just see how dictating the speed, slowing down on the apex there, allows Alejandro Sanchez to get the better run on the exit of the loop there to carry the speed down into Brooklands. And we've got side by side as well. A little bit of door rubbing going on up in front. You can just see it off camera, but those two battling it out, Carroll and Bootloop. And well, Rogers is trying to get involved in this, and all the while Sebastian Job is trying to make a breakaway here. But while these battle away, this is giving the leader the perfect opportunity to pull away. Carroll a little wide, a little drift away from the apex of Copse Corner. Here comes Bootloop then, coming towards Maggots. Will they go side by side? Yes, they will. Into Beckett's now, and it's going to be three wide. And look at that, a VRS Quadra SimSpot sandwich there. And well, Graham Carroll, he only loses one place in the end there, but my goodness, this is a close action here. But Carroll, he's not over yet. He's got a good run out of Chapel. They're going to door bang down the hanger straight. Come on guys, it's a straight line down there in towards Stowe once again, trying to use the side draft.
Big shot.
Slow on the mid corner of Stowe Corner, and now the lights are flashing from Bootloop. Carroll's ahead once again. Here comes Josh Rogers, and the rest of the field has decided to join in the party. Josh Rogers down the inside is going to get the move done on his teammate Jeremy Bootloop. So the Australian is up to third place now, and finally they all get themselves into a line, Connery.
Yeah, absolutely. What a crazy sequence, and it seems to continue there, at least in the back of the shot on the way down towards Copse Corner. We'll get the replay up for you here. Just that whole sort of fracas in and amongst your podium positions. This committed move from Jeremy Bootloop. I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times already, but it's simply what you have to do if you're going to make passes here. What a pass from Jeremy Bootloop it was as well. Inside for Maggots and into Beckett's around the outside. That is absolutely brilliant. That must be in the highlights reel for the end of the season.
Oh, it has to be, that's for sure. That is breathtaking driving, and it was aggressive, but it was fair in the end. That's the important thing there. What it has allowed is it's allowed Sebastian Job to pull away 2 seconds. The Englishman ahead of the Scotsman. No, that isn't the start of a joke. That is the lead of your field, with Josh Rogers now putting the pressure on Graham Carroll into Copse Corner as they go through there now. And Rogers, he'll want to try and get past Graham here. He'll feel that he's faster than the Scotsman. And into Maggots and Beckett's a go. He's putting the pressure on, and we've still got 22 minutes left in this race, so plenty that could happen in this one yet. And we saw what happened in that first sprint race earlier on. It certainly provided great entertainment, and this is certainly doing the same again. Down the hanger straight, using the slipstream. It's not the strongest slipstream from this car. Around the outside at Stowe. Can Rogers hold it out there? If he keeps it out there, he's got the inside for Vale. They give each other room, which is good to see. Onto the brakes for Vale, and still Carroll around the outside. If he holds the outside, he's got the inside for Club, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. Keep it on the inside there, use the position, the track position. Oh, Rogers from wide, a little wiggle there from Carroll, but still they're on track together into Abbey once again, and a little touch between the two of them. Rogers runs out wide, Carroll's going to keep the position. Here comes Bootloop now, he's made it back, and Rogers must have either some damage or a slowdown penalty there.
Yeah, that was Graham Carroll just getting a huge slap of oversteer coming out of Club Corner. You'll see it on your screen for you now. We're on board with Joshua Rogers. You can see, there we go. There's the first bit of contact between the two of them. And then on the way down through the first corner, Rogers gets a little bit of a tap to the rear end as well. and that just sends him towards the outside of the circuit, and then has to lose so many positions here. It actually puts Maximilian Benecke was going to be 3 positions ahead of him. You can see that little bit. There's not much in it between the two of them, but enough so that Rogers has to push so wide. And of course, we do have the damage situation with regards to that car as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on how he does throughout the rest of this 20 minutes that this race has remaining. There's still a quite tight action further back through the field, though, as we can see Rogers trying to make up positions almost immediately after that bit of an incident. Alejandro Sanchez is the first target on the list. We're riding on board Patrick Holtzman, who's getting a little bit boisterous with Jack Sedgwick as well. So everyone here stacked up inside of your top 10. Only Sebastian Job is the one that's been able to get away at the front of the field with a 2.7 second gap. Everyone else as close as you like. Here comes Sedgwick then over Joshua Rogers. Inside line for Stowe Corner. Has to commit from this far back, but decides against it and files back in line. But there's Joshua Rogers pushing wide. He has damage to that car, I suspect. It's not behaving in all of the right ways. And now Sedgwick can look to capitalize in towards the chicane. And now Patrick Holtzman takes that as an opportunity to make his presence known through Vale, but he's not able to complete the pass. And instead, Gregor Hutu will take this as an opportunistic move through Club, but he goes for a spin. And that is Hutu losing a ton of positions.
He's done well to keep that out the wall, it must be said. So well done, Gregor. But that's dropping him all the way down your field here, and absolute nightmare for the number 66, down to 25th in the end after that spin there. But that battle, that was second place through to about 12th place at the moment, is how close that is in that front pack. But it's exactly what Sebastian Job, the Englishman, wants at the front. He wants them to be battling here because it's slowing each other down, they're tripping each other up, and it's giving him the opportunity to just pull away. Sebastian Job, don't forget, is still in with a chance of the championship. You know, he's within 150 points of the championship lead going into this this week races, so he's got the opportunity still there, but he needs to score some really good race results, and that's what exactly he's doing right now. But still, we see this battle for second place. Carroll, Bootloop, De Jong, Benecke and Tommy Erstgaard not that far behind those four either.
Yeah, not too much of a gap at all. We are, well, we were briefly riding on board with Jeremy Bootloop there. That's first Coanda car in line. And everyone else just completely and utterly stacked up behind this Red Bull Racing Esports car of Graham Carroll, and he's giving his teammates a huge advantage here at the front of the field. Gap from P1, P2, that is 3.4 seconds, and Jeremy Bootloop well aware of that fact as he decides to try his way around the outside at Stowe Corner, but going to be unsuccessful in this instance. Puts him under threat from Mitchell de Jong. Here comes Benecke then, outside line for the first part of Vale, over the VRS Cranston Sport car of Mitchell de Jong, and now Benecke will have the inside line for the final quarter of Club. But look at the speed that de Jong has on the outside line, completely obliterates him off the corner, and here comes Erskard then, inside line for the first corner, and he's just going to be able to make it work. He has the momentum, bit of door rubbing off the corner, but he has to concede. Benecke, very, very good try, but he ends up losing a position instead of gaining one.
Yeah, absolutely. I said this was going to be an absolute belter this week, and it's proving to be such because these drivers are giving us one heck of a show. Benecke, though, I feel is doing the right thing, taking the outside line into Vale, because if you hold it around the outside, you've got the inside for Club and then for Abbey, but he didn't carry as much speed as he would have liked to, and that's why Tommy Erskard was able to get up alongside him in that one. But still, we look at Jack Sedgwick, and Patrick Holtzman. Through the field they go, and Sedgwick is putting the pressure on Patrick Holtzman. 9th and 10th place, these two. Sedgwick, the man from the UK, against the German. Into Cop's corner, should I say. And round they go. One thing with this circuit as well, it does give you a little bit of breathing room on corner exits, unlike St Watkins Glen, which was pretty much barriers up to the side of the track. You look at the wide expanses of the runoff here, it certainly is giving these drivers the opportunity to be a little bit more brave than they would have been saying last time out.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy Bootloop, though, again, angling for a move perhaps into towards Stoke Corner. Graham Carroll actually very defensive very early on, so very petrified of what the Frenchman has to offer in this one. And now on the way down to Vale, again, a defensive line from Carroll. You can just see his mentality here, how he's going to approach the rest of this race. It's just defend, 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 and it seems to be working right now. But I don't think it'll work forever, especially with how feisty some of these drivers are behind them. So coming across the line onto lap number 8 here through turn 1 once again. You can see the stream of cars heading their way by here. Everyone's still standing together. It's what we usually get to see here in the Porsche Esports Super Cup, and it brings action exactly like this. There's the tail end of the field just coming up right about now, and then there is your train for your final 2 podium positions. Carroll still holding strong at the front of this one, but that is no guarantee for the end of this race, especially when you have to defend all of the time for about 15 minutes.
We're halfway through the feature race here in the Porsche Esports Super Cup from Silverstone, and the race leader is Sebastian Job. He is now 5 seconds ahead of the rest of the field because, and I say the rest of the field because they're all battling together. Josh Rogers is going side by side at the moment with Tommy Erstgaard. Those two battling it out. They may be teammates in terms of teams, but right now they are enemies as they head into Copse Corner. And still Rogers holding that outside line. Carry the speed around that outside line. You're always going to be compromised when you're on the inside line going side by side, and that's Rogers through into Maggot's upper position into 6th place. So it is Sebastian Job in the lead. Graham Carroll still in 2nd place ahead of Jeremy Bootloop in 3rd. Mitchell de Jong 4th with Maximilian Beneke 5th. And there's just a little gap back to Josh Rogers, Tommy Erstgaard and Alejandro Sanchez rounds out your top 8, with Patrick Holtzman and Jack Sedgwick still together in 9th and 10th place. So that's how the field stacks at the moment, but still battling throughout the field. We've been focusing so much at the front, we've not really had time to look further down. Marcus Jensen, Moritz Lerner and Marty Piatella, they're battling it out at the moment, and they are swapping positions down at Stoke Corner. Well, they're going to go side by side in towards the Vale. And Moritz Lerner for that Williams Esports car, the German, around the outside of the fin. That turns into the inside, and he's going to get the job done through Club Corner. So that's a nice move, but it does leave him susceptible to the run out of Club. But right now, it's position gained there for Moritz against Martin Piatella as they get swap positions.
Very well worked move there. A little bit of jostling for position behind as well. That was Marin Cholak and Thomas Titala who were trying to get themselves involved in this one. And Cholak, again, a very aggressive line off of what is going to be coming through the loop through Aintree, and then, of course, down through the Wellington Straight as well. And then look for your braking point into Brooklands Corner, the left-hander, but not going to be any more swaps of position in this one. Meanwhile, further back, there might just be an altercation. There's a big altercation. Zelensky right into the back of Hishlan.
Yeah, and that can happen there at Brooklands. You can take 2 lines through there, but they do end up going in towards one, and Hishlan, I think, has decided that that is his day done, and he is out of the race. We'll have a look at the replay again, and it's the run down the Wellington Straight. Bobby did get the slipstream, and he did look for the late move, but really, there was room there, but it was Hishlan was just trail braking through the corner, and it all just came together then in the end. So disappointing end for Antoine, but we're back now to live pictures, and it is still this battle for 2nd place and now 3rd place, because Mitchell de Jong, he's looking like he's wanting to make some moves now on the Frenchman Jeremy Bootloop. So it's Frenchman Bootloop, the American Mitchell de Jong, and Maximilian Beneke, the German, as they go through that final corner again. of the Australian Joshua Rogers, not that far behind. What a truly world championship this is as we go through once again into Abbey and then into Farm. And yeah, Maran Cholak, big spin for him at Club Corner.
Catches
Got
one
it
of the
back up
Orion
and
cars there.
running. Oh yeah, that's not the best rejoin from him there. He won't be.
Oh, big instant in front of the field, Paul.
Yes,
oh,
huge.
That's huge. That is absolutely huge. There's a car on its side. That's Mitchell de Jong. Tommy Erstgaard's also involved in this one for VRS Coanda Simsport. We'll have to cycle that one back to try and find a replay, but that's Maximilian Beneke running straight into the back of de Jong, spins him across the corner, and it collects a good couple of cars in the process as well. That is huge.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've seen it on the replay. So contact between De Jong and Beneke. There was also the number 1 car of Tommy Erstgaard was the one that actually went and flipped De Jong onto his side. So championship contender De Jong, 3rd place going into this week's and championship, and that means that there's going to be changes, but we've seen the replay a few times there. Beneke, though, that did cost him a few positions, and one of those crucially to the championship leader, Joshua Rogers. So Rogers now up to 4th ahead of Max Beneke in 5th place still, but big drama, and it's what can happen there into the loop. It's such a slow section of the track as that, and it all concertinas together, and that's exactly what's happened there, Connery.
Yeah, I was just about, when I took back the commentary there after you describing the action, I was going to say, oh, Joshua Rogers, Maximum Beneke, they're on the same bit of real estate here, so we might have P1 and 2 in the championship having a little bit of a battle, but oh, how quickly things change there as Beneke decides to run into the back of Mitchell instead. Now, as a result, it does mean that Rogers has been able to get himself 1 position ahead of Beneke instead of 1 position behind, and that may be very, very crucial, especially considering how close that championship situation is right at the front of the standings. But meanwhile, P2 in your race here today, that seems to be a question mark as well, as Graham Carroll, he's put up an absolutely brilliant defense over the entirety of the racing that we've had here in this main race so far. Needs to keep it up for another around about 9 minutes, and he can come home in P2 and bag a decent amount of cash for finishing there as well. Not as much as the race win being $1,000, but still a good payday. But Jeremy Bootloop will try and wrestle that one away from him.
Yeah, he won't give this one up without a fight, that's for sure. And Josh Rogers still hanging around now behind Bootloop. So Jeremy's lost 1 teammate who was hounding him. He's been replaced with another one, and it's Josh Rogers, your championship leader, trying to get a really decent haul of points here today, and it's certainly panning out for him in this one, because he is ahead of Beneke, and that's going to help his championship. But look at that lead that Sebastian Job has got there. 6 seconds. That's right, you heard me right. 6 seconds is your race lead ahead of Graham Carroll, and you can see the lap gaps between them, lap upon lap.
Huge.
You're talking quarter up to half a second per lap, and that's all because Graham Carroll has had to be defending from that train of cars. Was now got down to 3 cars, but he's still defending here, and he's still doing a really good job of keeping this car in second place. Even though it's a big wide track here, it's showing you can defend around here.
Yeah, he's having to take very shallow lines into each of these corners to try and cover off any moves. You can see how Bootloop can bring it up to the rear bumper all he wants, but he can't find a space to make his way by, and perhaps until now, because there's an opportunity here down into Vale, but Graham Carroll just parks it right in the middle of the racetrack, and now Bootloop harassing his back bumper. He's fed up and over goes that Red Bull Racing Esports driver of Carroll, and actually Rogers is collected in that one, so he might just fall back. He's already fallen back behind Beneke.
Yeah, it's whether he's got even more damage now on his car. Carroll's going to have huge damage, and the red mist will have descended there for him. Jeremy Bootloop, I think, was just getting a little bit desperate there and ended up making contact. We'll have a look on the replay again, but I do believe that is on Jeremy, is that not taking into account that Graham was going to be slower on the apex, and he just pushed him out the way, did Jeremy. That's not the best from him. I do have to say. But all of this means that now Max Benecke is ahead of Josh Rogers in second place now, rather than further down the field. So Josh Rogers, he finds himself once again behind his championship competitor, and this is just going to keep on going and going and going.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be the case. So Sebastian Job, he has about a country mile at the front of the field. There's another Red Bull Racing Esports driver. That's Carroll again, so he's struggling with the damage to that car on the brakes. Coming through Brooklands and, well, coming up towards Luffield, it all seems to be rather okay, albeit slow. But then just a lazy drift out and loops the car around. That car is in arguably no fit state to continue, although try as he might. But still, we do have battles that are going on. There's still, believe it or not, a bit of a stack up for P2 here. This time it's Maximilian Benecke out of nowhere after that big incident up into P2 ahead of his championship rival of Joshua Rodders. Even if he finishes in this configuration, I don't think he'll be able to take the championship lead coming into the next race, but it will be still a very, very close gap heading into the next event. But Joshua Rodders will make sure that that gap isn't too bad, as he might still have some fight left in that car, Paul, especially with him bringing it up to the bumper of that Pure Racing Team driver. They will be very close to heading their way across the line here. Rodders angling, perhaps body language suggests a move is imminent here for the Australian, but it's about when and where.
So I'm just looking at the points for the championship between the sprint race and where they finished the sprint race and where they currently are. They would be in exactly the same position as where they were coming into this round in terms of the sprint race and the feature race. That's not taken into account qualifying because Josh Rogers did, of course, set the fastest time. So yeah. It's pretty close between the two of them, and Josh is trying to make the move on Benecke. It's not going to happen at the moment, but Josh, I believe, would gain 2 points on him if they stay as they are. That's how close this championship is. It's fantastic to see, and it's always great to have everyone here along watching us here on the iRacing Esports Network across YouTube, Twitch and Facebook for the Porsche Esports Supercup. And well, we're into the final 4 minutes of this race, and I tell you what, Connery, we're going to be breathless. We're going to have no voice by the end of this one. What can they bring us next now?
Joshua Rodders' move for P2 against his main championship rival. That may potentially be the thing for the end of this race, as they had their way out of Maggotts and Beckett's and Chapel as well. And now down the hangar straight then, Rogers has the slipstream, but does he commit to a move? He forces Benecke to go defensive into Stowe, so Rogers can try a little bit of a cutback move here. Wide on entry, cut back in for the exit, get the rod off the corner. He seems to have the speed here. Benecke trying to find a line to try and defend this one from, as Rogers tries around the outside at the Vale chicane, has to duck back in line, and they will be line astern for Club. But this is not going to be over unless one of these drivers has a little bit of a bow before the end of this race. About 3 minutes to go as they head their way across the line into turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. This all battling it out for second place, and Patrick Holtzman and Jack Sedgwick just waiting in the wings, waiting for any opportunity. If these two trip over each other, and we've seen a few trip over each other in this race, then they are waiting for that opportunity to get a really good result here in today's race. But these two, they're going at it hammer and tongs, but they're going at it pretty clean so far. Will the gloves come off as we head into the final portion and the final laps of the race here? Time is running out, so this should be the penultimate lap here in this particular race. So what an event it has been. Silverstone producing great racing as we expected, and Rogers taking that different line through Luffield, but it does mean that Benecke gets on the power a little bit earlier because he V's out at Luffield, coming through Woodcut, making liberal use of the track limits through Woodcut, it must be said. And then into Copse Corner. These drivers absolutely on the limit. And Rogers, look at the run that he got through Copse Corner. If he could get the overlap through Maggots into Beckett's, no he can't. He has to just get out of it just that little bit. But look at how close those two are running as they're going through Beckett's. Rogers seems to get the better run out of Chapel though compared to Beneke. He's been doing it the last couple of times. And here we go then, slipstream down the hanger straight. Patrick Holtzman, he's trying to get a little bit of clear air, see what's going on in front. He's trying to make the most of this. Rogers, late move to the inside of Stowe. Beneke gives the space there. He didn't have to do that, but he realised for the championship that that was crucial not to end up in an accident. Beneke, better speed out of Stowe into Vale, and he's going to hold on to that position as they start the final lap of this race. But Rogers is not giving this one up.
No, he's not. This is the last ditch attempt now. White flag out there. Last lap pass has to be required here for Joshua Rodders if he's going to finish any further up the podium than he is right now. Beneke has a huge defensive job to do here up in towards what's going to be Village Corner. No opportunity for Rodders to head his way through there. Beneke parked it in the middle of the circuit. Here comes the aggressive move then up through the loop for Joshua Rodders, but it's not going to happen still as they head their way through Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight. Then this might be the opportunity for Rodders. He has a very good run. Defensive instantly from the German, and now the Australian around the outside, perhaps in towards Brooklands. Not going to commit to it just yet, just has to follow in line. Hope Beneke's made a mistake and outbreaks himself into here, but he seems to be perfect. But there's the mistake, and now Rogers can head his way on the inside here of Luffield Corner, and now up towards Woodcut. Across the old start finish line they go. Rogers inside line for Copse Corner, but Beneke is going to fight for all he's worth here on this outside line. Neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Rogers inside line. Does he track out here? Just a little bit, but they'll continue the battle for P2 on the way down through Maggots and Beckett.
Yeah, they're going to try it out, and well, Beneke's going to stay ahead then into Maggots and Beckett's then. He's managed to hold on to it. We'll keep an eye. Sebastian Job is out in the lead. He's nearly coming to the end of this one, but we'll keep an eye on this battle for the time being as they come down the hanger straight for the final time. This is the final opportunity. It's going to be desperation, is it? Or is it going to be glory? Down into Stowe to the outside, and he's not going to make the move, but for the time being, look to the front because Sebastian Job, he won the sprint race earlier on. He's coming across the line to win the feature race here in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. What a victory! Double victory, Sebastian Job. Here comes second place now. Who's going to get it? Beneke is going to get it across the line. Rogers clipped the curb. That slowed him down, and he finishes in third place. What a run between those drivers towards the end there. Fantastic driving between them. The battling between them was absolutely epic, and my goodness, what a run. Here it is again on replay. You can see how he tries to get the cut back. He gets a little nose in on the inside of Club Corner. Beneke squeezed him, which sent him over the curb, and that's it. Across the line, Beneke in second place. What a finish to that race. And, well, as everybody else has come across the line then in this race, we'll be able to take you through your final finishing results in this event. What a race of the Porsche Esports Super Cup, and it is Sebastian Job who wins this one, 10.8 seconds in the end ahead of Max Beneke in second place. Joshua Rogers just couldn't quite get the job done on that final lap to come home in third, with Patrick Holtzman and Jack Sedgwick pretty close together, fourth and fifth, with Martin Kroenke and Lauren Heinrich were involved in that one, with Ricardo Castroleda as well in 8th. Kevin Ellis Jr. brings his car home in 9th ahead of Alejandro Sanchez, who fell down the order from 4th at the start of the race down to 10th. Jeremy Bootloop, he will not be happy with that, getting involved in that incident with Graham Carroll at Club Corner. That'll be discussed, I bet, at length between the drivers. He finishes 11th ahead of Moritz Lerner. Marcus Jensen and Jamie Fluke, who had to make 2 comeback drives here today, finishes in 14th ahead of Thomas Tetela. Tommy Østgaard, Matti Piatella, Bobby Zelensky, who we saw getting involved with Antoine Hijla in 18th. Gregor Houghton, 19th after his spin on the exit of Club Corner, and Sebastian Dunkel rounding out your top 20. Jared Filsell, 7th down to 21st in that race. He will be gutted about that one. Baron Cholak, 22nd after a spin for him. Ilka Harpler, 23rd. Dion Verge, 24th. Graham Carroll did not finish with damage from that incident down in his 25th. Mitchell de Jong also did not finish, 26th. Antoine Hijla, Alexander Thebe, Nels Kush, Kazuki Umeshima and David Williams all failed to finish as well.
Wow, what a race. That is going to go down as possibly the craziest drama-filled race in the Porsche Esports Supercup for 2019, and we've already had 6 amazing weekends worth of racing before this one. What a controversial, difficult, challenging race for all these drivers. You know, I'm almost half-minded to go back, replay the tape in a few minutes from the actual start of the event and go through some of those incidents in more detail, because there's only so much you can talk about in the 30 minutes of doing live commentary, and there was probably about another hour and a half worth of action we could talk about there. We can get Stephen A. Smith on the phone, we could talk about how it's all conspiracies, how it's all dramas, but that was highly entertaining. The one thing I think in the 45 minutes worth of racing we've had here today that's almost been overlooked is the fact that Sebastian Jobe won both. And he won, of course, $1,000 by claiming victory in the feature race here today. So congratulations again to Red Bull Racing Esports. I don't know if there's something in that energy drink water at the moment that's going around Silverstone, but they are on fine form once again. And actually, at 2 different stages in that race, it was very almost a 1-2 for Red Bull Racing Esports. At the start, of course, it was Sebastian Jobe and Graham Carroll. Graham Carroll seems to be happy to play that rear gunner mode, allowing Seb to go out and take the race victory. At the point that we had that dramatic incident with Graham Carroll, which saw him getting turned almost onto his roof and then back again, well, they ended up seeing Patrick Holtzman starting to come into play a little bit later on as well. We have got drivers that we have got to speak to. We have got incidents that we have got to review. Clear your schedule for the next hour, boys, because this might be a long, long one here on the iRacing Esports Network. Absolutely fantastic racing, but there's one driver who's probably had a bit of a boring weekend here, but it doesn't matter. He's won both the races. He is $1,000 richer by winning the feature race here in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. Well, Seb, congratulations. That was all going off behind you, but how was it being at the front of the field?
Thanks. It was quite nice, actually. For a change, I had a bit of a boring race because that doesn't come often in this series. Just got very lucky that I had a great teammate behind me helping out defending. I think unfortunately I had a crash, but yeah, up until then it was like, especially in race 1, it was so helpful having Graham right behind me, because I could just put in the laps, help us try and pull away. We didn't really get a gap, but we took 1 and 2, so that was good. And yeah, just I think got a bit lucky that everyone else just slowed down battling behind.
Was there any form of team communications about Graham kind of helping you out to get a gap at the front of the field in that feature race? Because he seemed to be playing it very defensively, or is that more just a nature of what it is to be running in the pack here at the new Silverstone?
I mean, we weren't really speaking together, so it was, we kind of agreed before the race like we weren't going to fight a huge amount. But yeah, I think there was one lap where Graham made a small mistake, and after that they were all over him, so that just meant they battled, and because I had like half a second I could just not worry about having to defend, and that just gave me a small gap. And then once you get a small gap, it's only going to get worse because Graham loses the draft, so he has to defend more, and then the gap gets bigger and bigger because of that.
And as I say, that feature race, you could see the gap getting wider behind you. You had absolutely no idea, I assume, then, of what was going on in the melee behind.
No, I mean, I had an idea because I could see their lap times were a lot slower than they should have been, so I kind of knew they were battling, but I had no idea how it was going. I could just wait for it to update every lap and see how Graham was doing. 'Cause that was my main interest, and other than just making sure I had the win. But yeah, I was more interested on just seeing where Graham finished, but unfortunately it didn't work out.
Well, in terms of the last 3 rounds remaining in the championship, you've got the Nürburgring, you've got WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and you've got Monza. You head into those final couple of rounds with, you know, some more penalty points to spare. You're down now almost certainly to 8 penalty points. How does it feel to be almost on the right side of the stewards heading into the last 3 rounds of the championship? And what's your thoughts now being only the second driver in this series to have done the double?
Yeah, it's definitely helpful, but hopefully I won't be adding on to those penalty points or anything. But yeah, I think in general this season I've been pretty happy with my own driving standards. I had a pretty bad round at Mosport. I think I got quite a few there, just in the middle of the pack. I didn't have a great round, but yeah, other than that I feel pretty happy with that. And it's now yeah, because every round you lose penalty points if you're clean, so that's definitely helpful. But yeah, and also getting 2 wins is really really nice. I don't know why it's not more common in this series, because normally if you get the first win, you would think you'd be pretty likely to get a second, but it's just so chaotic. So it's definitely a nice feeling to have both and be only a second person.
Double victory. The championship is still alive for you. I'm sure you would have hoped that Beneke and Rogers finished a little bit further back, but the form, I always say in these championships, it's the form, and we go back to things like the World Championship Grand Prix Series back in the day. Who two would always start off slowly and then build up into a crescendo at the end. When Kroenke won his first World Championship, it was exactly the same thing. Do you think form is on your side? Is this championship still yours for the winning?
I don't want to get too carried away, because often that leads to a bad race. So I'm just really taking it each race at a time. Before this race, I was only thinking, oh, I'd like to get a top 5 or something, just try and close the gap a little bit. And that led to 2 wins. So I'm just gonna keep that attitude and yeah, ignore the form or anything like that.
Well, before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you?
Yeah, just a massive thank you to Red Bull Racing Esports and everyone helping out. Unfortunately, I didn't contribute too much this week, so I'm sorry for that. But yeah, thank you to everyone there helping out, and in particular Graham for defending and helping me out there.
Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is Sebastian Job, your race winner here today. A double race winner. That is $1,000 richer, and he is still somewhere there in the championship as well. Second place goes to Max Beneke, and well, Max, points in this weekend, both in the sprint race and in the feature. I was thinking that championship was starting to fall slowly away from you, but you've had a couple of fantastic recovery drives, and I mean, I really want to talk about your experience of the craziness that took place about halfway through the feature.
Yeah, hi Hall. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the race? I was like, okay, race 1 was already really critical with overtaking. Didn't find a good spot anywhere. And then I thought, all right, I just have to hope for some luck in the feature race. And I have no idea. Like, there was a bit of carnage in front of me, which gave me some positions. Then I had to fight against people, which were insane fights. And then obviously last 3 laps against Joshua, insane battle. I tried everything. My tires were completely gone. I was sliding too much before, so I had no traction going out of any corner. I was sweating all the way through, but then last corner I was really released. That everything went out properly, and I would have never thought that I could get up to P2 at the end. Obviously, I was lucky with other people crashing and some incidents, but overall really happy to be here in P2 now, and congrats to Sebastian, insane drive in both races, deserved wins.
I'm just thinking out loud a little bit here, and both in the NFL and in association football, as well as some other sports, you often end up, when you've got a lot of people who are very good at playing defense, that it becomes almost boring and monotonous at times. I remember watching some NFL games which has got less than 7 points scored. We lost, unfortunately. But in terms of this season and the drivers, of course, we're talking about some of the world's best sim racers who have got a wide racing acumen. They all know how to play in attack mode, but they all know how to play defensive driving as well. Do you think that it's actually the ability to defend that is leading to some of the situations more than people being necessarily too aggressive?
I definitely think so. Like, defense is as important as attacking people. Like, if you're not able to defend on the inside line for the next corner, then the other guy is just going through, and then you lose a position. And if this goes on and on, you just lose positions over the race. And especially here, where the pace of the different people is so small, you really have to be able to defend in any corner. You always have to have one eye in the mirror to see if there's probably someone who could have an attack on you. And if you don't do that, you either get spun because you didn't see it, or you just lose the position. And if that goes on and continues to happen throughout the race, then you will just score less points. So I definitely think that defending is really important. It's not just about attacking. You just have to attack in the right moments, but defending is always on spot. Like, you always have to be careful about people in the mirror.
Well, you've got 3 rounds left in the championship. You've got a home race at the Nürburgring, you've got Laguna Seca, and you've got Monza. Now, we all know that Monza's going to be particularly crazy. We all know that Laguna Seca is incredibly tight and narrow. So the last, I'd say, of the proper Grand Prix layout style racing for these cars is going to be next time out at the Nürburgring. How are you going to approach the next race to try and maximize your advantage and keep yourself within, or maybe even get the championship race lead? Because of course you come out of this race only 9 points behind Josh Rogers, only losing 2 points.
Yeah, this is already really good, and obviously, like, for the next races, I'm going to push even harder. This week I had a lot of I didn't have a lot of time to practice, so in the end the result is way better than what I should have had, depending on the practice. But Nürburgring definitely is one of my favorite tracks on iRacing and in the real world as well. So probably the motivation is there even higher, especially with being at the top spot to get the championship lead at the end. But it's just going to be, as always, like, trying to put maximum practice in the car, trying to figure out what's good for the track. And today I saw that the tires didn't last well, so I will try to fix this problem to be even competitive at the end of the race.
Before we let you go, Max, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you and your team?
Yeah, shout out to sponsors, Spusu, Autohaus Wallmeier, Asha Racing, obviously Pure Driving School as well, and thanks to Alex and some other people for the good work, and thanks to you guys for the broadcast, and see you hopefully soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Max Benecke then, coming home second in our feature race here today. Third place is Josh Rogers, and well, Josh, I was speaking a moment ago to Max saying, coming out of this event thinking that you've salvaged the championship continuing race would have been something incredible. And, well, you're in exactly the same situation as him, because at points in that race, it almost looked as though you would have lost the championship lead.
Yeah, obviously coming into this race with the championship battle at the top so tight, it was always going to be challenging to try and come out on top. Obviously, a new track on the service, and it was a little bit of an unknown as to how the racing would pan out. But yeah, obviously towards the end of the race there was some really good racing, but yeah, it was just unfortunate at times when I felt like when I was having that first battle with Graham, if I was able to get the job done then and there, I think it was a possibility to catch Sebi, but it was unfortunately pushed into a slowdown on the exit, and that kind of pushed me back. And then it was very challenging to get through the pack from then on. But all in all, it was still a good race. It was a brilliant battle in the end there with Max. He drove well and left racing room, which was good to see, and I did the same back. Obviously you get what you give, and yeah, all in all, still gained I think a point. Well, extended the lead by 1 point due to the qualifying. So yeah, obviously it's going to be an interesting one going into the Nürburgring, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I was speaking a moment ago to Max about the fact that, of course, these drivers are some of the best in races in the world. Overtaking is always going to be slightly more complicated because you are all, by definition, a complete package, or thereabouts. But we saw today you're making some passes that were lasting for, almost half a lap, in fact, longer at one point in this race. Is the mindset that you go into trying to make a pass thinking, okay, I'm not going to get the pass done on this corner, but if I make the pass here, I might have my move completed by, let's say, club?
Not always. Sometimes though, obviously you do have to set up a pass. And even though it is a 30-minute race, we still do have to use a little bit of patience, believe it or not, and try and set up the moves. So yeah, you're not always trying to get the job done in that corner then and there. And in a track like this, it was quite easy to run too wide through the corners, as long as you were given the room from the car on the inside, which I was always trying to do. So that's why you saw some of those really good battles where the passes and the battles are lasting corner on corner on corner before you actually get the job done. And that's kind of when it comes into a little bit more of the mindset of trying to set up the pass. Obviously, because like you said, some of them were lasting quite a while. So yeah.
And heading into the last 3 rounds of the championship, we've got the Nürburgring, we've got ourselves Laguna Seca, we've got ourselves Monza. Of the 3, which do you think is the best track for you and Karina Simsport, but also which of the 3 tracks are you worried most about?
Honestly, it's quite a tough question. There's a lot of, all those 3 tracks are pretty much completely different. Obviously, Monza is very straight line dependent. We go to the Nürburgring, which will be again quite a challenging track to pass, and obviously going off our success from last weekend through there, hopefully that round's one of those kind of ones that we can come in with a lot of confidence and see if we can convert. But Laguna Seca is going to be that interesting one where I feel like it's going to be very close between everybody, and it's another track that's very challenging to pass, and probably a little bit setup dependent too. So that one's going to be very difficult, but obviously I feel like at this point the championship's going to really hinge on Monza, and in a track like that there's always passing going on, obviously because of the draft, and you can always kind of be within that range, and it should be quite good for some passing into turn 1, turn 3. You get the idea. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Obviously it's going to be challenging nonetheless, and hopefully we can hold on to it and just keep taking each round as it comes, and try not to be too aggressive.
Well, thank you very much there, Josh. Before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you?
Yeah, no problem. Obviously, massive thanks to everyone at Coenda Simsport this week and every other week for every other round. The effort everyone puts in is second to none, and it was a little bit unfortunate with some of our guys tonight, but sometimes that's the way the ball rolls. Obviously, our main partner, Virtual Racing School, Peter and everyone over there take brilliant care of us. VTech, SimQuip, and End Designs, obviously you guys for the broadcast, and Porsche for putting on the series for us, and obviously Racing Post.
Well, thank you very much. That is Josh Rogers, who came home in 3rd place here today. That is your podium. We have got one more driver to talk to, Jack Sedgwick, who came home inside your top 5 here today in the Simicube Inex Racing number 10 car. And well, Jack, you've kind of been right in the middle of all of this mess here today.
Yeah, it was the battle at the end was fun to watch on the front seat, I must say. I kind of just had a bad qualifying and kind of had to try and recover from that, and luckily it all kicked off in front of me, so gained all the places from that, really.
How hard was it to try and make moves through this field? Because we've seen lots of battles going on up and down through the field throughout the entire race, but passing sometimes being at a bit of a premium. How was it from your perspective?
It was incredibly difficult, especially if the guy in front of you was in the draft as well. You would barely even catch him on the straight, which I guess led to some of the crashes with people having to be a bit brave with their braking to try and get the move done. Probably I would say it's the worst track of the season for passing, but it worked out for me in the end.
You've got 3 rounds of the championship left. You've got yourself Nürburgring, Laguna Seca and Monza. Of the 3, which is the one that you think that Inex Racing might be, well, best suited to?
I would say the Nürburgring. I usually go pretty well there at Sim Expo in the Sim Trophy. So I'd say that's probably my best bet for another top 5 on pace anyway for the rest of the season. So I've got to try and make the most of that for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. Before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you and that Supercup Inex Racing team?
Yeah, firstly, thanks to everyone that helped out with the setup this week. It was pretty good. I just messed it up a bit in qualifying. Thanks to our sponsors, Simucube, SimLab and V-Racing, for all the support they give us, and also thanks to Porsche for putting on this championship and giving us the chance to do this. It's pretty cool. Well,
ladies and gentlemen, that is Jack Sedgwick, and well, guys, what a feature race that was. I mean, it started off today oh so well. We had a clean first lap in the sprint race, Paul, and it seemed to be, instead what we get rewarded with is some highly interesting moments, some quite controversial moments. We had 2 of our championship contenders at some point damaged or almost on their roofs, and I mean, we're playing a replay of this race, and I'm hopefully, in the time we've got remaining, going to stop and try and talk through some of these instances if we get time. But wow.
Whilst those interviews were going on, I went for a lie down in a darkened room. That was, chaotic, I think, is a word that you've used, Will. I would say certainly an interesting event here today, and one that produced some great racing. Let's not get bogged down on the incidents that we did see in here, because the majority of the racing was very clean, hard, fair racing. It's just 1 or 2 little incidents that have happened here that I think will keep the stewards very busy here today. So good luck with that one, because I'm glad I'm not on that stewards panel to look at that, because there's going to be a lot of finger pointing from, I would say, definitely with the 2 incidents involving Graham Carroll and Jeremy Bootloop, and also the one with Mitchell de Jong as well, ended up on his side. I think those are going to be the 2 key points that a lot of fingers will be pointed in that one, and it's a little bit disappointing that people are going to remember that rather than the glorious drive that Sebastian Job made here today, just keeping it out front, because he had to keep it out the front. He could have quite easily made a mistake and spun it out, because we've seen a few drivers have issues with the cars around here. But also the majority of the racing that was hard and fair.
Yeah, this is the first of those incidents that I was just showing up here. This is where Josh Rogers ends up falling to the rear of your train. You can see about 6-7 drivers going past him as he gets a slowdown penalty after going a little off in turn number 1 here at Silverstone. So he was on a recovery drive from then, and in some ways he was kind of lucky, I would argue, because he wasn't having to deal with the big incident, of course, that happened on a little bit later on in this race. I didn't actually ever see this past the MSI incident that almost ended up with 2 drivers going off. But do you agree with me, Paul, about the point that I made when I was talking to Max Benecke? And you and I, we both watch the NFL. You're a rugby league guy. When you have 2 teams that are incredible at defense, what you sometimes end up with is a very boring game. to translate that into a motorsport sense, when you've got drivers who are very good at defensive driving, what you end up with is a situation where you have to make long, drawn-out passes, but also you end up in a situation where there is the ability for bigger incidents to happen.
I do agree with that. The fact that Graham is such a high-quality defensive driver. I mean, we saw all of his defensive driving skills here today, and we've seen it in previous rounds as well of this championship. That these drivers, they've got to try something different rather than the obvious, just go for the dart down the inside or get the run on out in the corner, things like that. You've really got to mentally think about it, and I think at some points it eventually just got people getting more and more desperate to make moves on others, and they've ended up making a silly little mistake, and you've ended up with a huge incident because there is such a long queue of traffic behind that defensive driver. So definitely, I do say that they are, and we've said this throughout the season as well, you've had this championship in qualifying where first through to the high 20s, even into the 30s, with less than a second separating them. So when you've got that little difference in driving capability here, means that overtaking will be extremely difficult, and they do have to work for it. And when they do work for it and it does come off, we're here celebrating in the commentary booth because that is unbelievable. It's fantastic. It's wonderful to see. When it doesn't come off, it can look silly at times.
Yeah, Connery, when I was talking to Seb, he says that him and Graham Carroll don't talk too much, and I would have loved to have talked a little bit to Graham Carroll about his approach to this race, because even though there was probably no pre-race communication apart from we're not going to try and crash into each other, do you think that Carroll's actually thinking about the bigger Red Bull Racing Esports picture, remembering the fact that he's had about 3 years of being a part of a team which is underperformed to his expectations, and thinking about that big Red Bull Racing Esports picture and think, you know what, I can help my teammates succeed here by trying to hold off a lot of people behind me rather than just trying to go for victory?
I think so, because if you look at the qualifying times especially, Graham Carroll didn't qualify too far off his teammate. Qualified directly behind him, in fact, so or around him. So it's not like he doesn't have the same sort of pace as Sebastian Job is able to manage. And I think in this situation, he was aware of the situation with Sebastian Job, backing up the field behind to try and let Seb get away. Of course, he also managed to hold his own position for the vast majority of that race, so it was certainly working in his favor as well, and he wasn't losing positions as a result. But when you're about 2-3 of a second a lap slower than the race leader that you only qualified less than a tenth behind, then something more is going on there, I think.
And the second part of that is, of course, is that we talked about the unforced errors over the last couple of years for Sebastian Job, and the fact that he had made a couple of unforced errors so far in this season as well. He is now up to 4th place in the championship. And yes, he might want to have been in the championship running had he have, not made those unforced errors earlier. But do you think that what we're seeing now is a more focused and unified Red Bull Racing Esports team because of the fact that they have had a bit of adversity at the start of the season, and it was, to a lot of people's eyes, going to be the standard Coanda versus PRT battle with a lot of people almost writing them off?
I mean, we did kind of have a Coanda versus PRT battle in that one, but you're absolutely right. Red Bull Racing Esports, as you quite rightfully mentioned, didn't have the greatest start to the season, but it looks like this sort of second half and onwards looks to be much, much better for them, because you have to remember last time out, Sebastian Job actually got 2nd place, and now he's gotten the 2 race wins here today in this one. So doing an absolutely fantastic job. Of course, we had the double podium for Patrick Holtzman just a couple of weeks ago as well. So every single team member on Red Bull is putting in their work here at the end of the season to try and make the championship as close as possible. But they are still relatively decent margin off of being involved in the battle for the championship win. That still very much goes to the likes of Joshua Rogers and Maximilian Benecke. But if they can have another good race next time out at the Nürburgring, then they might just be in the picture.
Yeah, Paul, now a lot of the comments about today have been about the fact that, you know, some of these incidents will go without penalty. We have talked about this throughout points in the season, the fact that there is a post-race review panel for these races, and, you know, I get the reports a couple of days before the race, and we actually saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, so I know I can count to 11, but 11 at-fault penalties given at the last race at Watkins Glen. 2 drivers for a variety of incidents through the field, and you quite rightly say there's going to be a lot of discussion that takes place after this, but would you have thought that it would have been almost too complicated to have tried to have worked out some of these at-fault penalties in the middle of the race, and the at-race, the post-race penalty system, do you think that's working well?
So it's no secret, I used to be on the stewards panel for the new Endurance Championship, which was shown on the Irish Esports network, and you know, those have got a nice long 6-hour races, so you've got the time there to be able to make a decision. You're not feeling pressured into making a quick decision that could end up being the wrong decision and affecting somebody's race adversely because of a quick snap decision. These races, you've got to remember, the first race is a 15-minute race. Well, one instant can take you 5 minutes just to look at to decide, right, what has actually happened before you even start thinking about who's at fault. So to say that you need in-race live stewards, it would be great, but you would need so many stewards to be available for these sprint races to spread that workload out amongst them that I don't think it would be practicable possible. So
and then the consistency as well.
Yes, and that's another thing that you want, is the consistency in the decision making with stewards. So it's not ideal, and yes, people's races have been adversely affected during the race from incidents, but this is the process that we've got at the moment. We've got a stewards panel that look at this after the event, and they apply penalty points as a penalty point system. And you've got to remember, when these drivers all came into this championship, they signed up to say that they agreed to the regulations that were put before them to race in this championship.
True.
People can have suggestions as to how to improve it, and as long as they are sensible, then that would be absolutely fantastic, because I want this championship to thrive. I want this to become one of the biggest series throughout the whole world of not just sim racing, but esports in general. So we need that constructive criticism, but at the same point, with limited time and limited stewards available, you cannot make those decisions in race, because that when there is a decision that's made that's wrong, people will cry foul straight away, and they will be the first ones to jump up and down and say that that was a wrong decision. So it's best that they do it in this manner for the time being. Whether something changes for next season, that's up to debate. That's for the organisers and the regulators to make those decisions.
It's also worth noting that when drivers have had qualifying suspensions, they have ended up having bad races as a consequence. We've seen it for Benecke, we've seen it for Josh Rogers, and we will see it undoubtedly for others throughout the course of this season. And we're just keeping these pictures rolling, by the way, because I would like to maybe see the incident with Graham Carroll one more time before we go off there. But the point to note as well, I think, here is that a lot of these drivers are professionals. A lot of these drivers also get frustrated in the moment, but all these drivers have said overtaking is at a premium. You have to be very defensive in your driving sometimes, but actually you have to work hard in order to make things work. There is also, by the way, to worth noting, if people who's already had a qualifying suspension hit another penalty threshold, they will get a race suspension. With 3 rounds remaining in the championship, I'm sure no driver will want to potentially throw away not necessarily just the championship, but any of the championship positions. And there's the incident, by the way, for Mitchell de Jong. We can just show you that one again. That's with him and Max Benecke, if memory serves me right. It was with Benecke, yeah, as they headed themselves through the loop here, as the two just coming together, and then Benecke just getting turned. Well, 45-degree angle, 90-degree angle. I should know some of my mathematics. But the last 3 rounds of this championship are going to be crucial in so many different ways, Connery. And there's a storyline, of course, with the resurgence of Red Bull. We've got the storylines of Max Benecke and Josh Rogers having that battle. You still got Mitchell de Jong in the mix there as well. But what we've seen is one bad round can change everything. But what we've also seen here today is a lot of your championship contenders have been able to then drive back through the field after some adversity.
Yeah, that is exactly what we've seen, and that is just the mark of a championship contender, of a championship winner potentially for those drivers involved. So no matter who the overall championship goes to at the end of the season, I think with the competition in this series and how each driver just has to absolutely scrap to even gain a single position, I think it would be very, very well deserved for whoever gets it. But with the 3 races that we have to go, with the Nürburgring, with Red Tech Raceway Laguna Seca, and of course that finale at Monza, I just want to talk about the Nürburgring just for a moment, because that's where Maximilian Benecke is an absolute beast. That is not an understatement. He is the best Nürburgring driver on the iRacing surface, flat out, no doubt. So he's going to have, at least from my assessment, a very good event there, maybe even taking the main event race win, and then that really, really spices things up for the final 2 rounds.
Yeah, and I said a moment ago, Paul, as well, that of the 3 rounds we've got remaining, the Nürburgring is the last that's really on a standard Grand Prix layout, because yes, Laguna Seca is, for example, hosting an IndyCar race this year once again, and yes, Monza is a Grand Prix track, but the last 2 rounds of the championship are very unique. At Laguna Seca, you've got yourself the corkscrew. You've got yourself the very narrow track where actually going too wide at vast portions of it will be difficult. Maybe for the first few corners and then maybe the last 3 corners. And then at Monza, of course, it's all about the chicanes and momentum. So really, the last pure Grand Prix track that we're going to be running at is going to be at the Nürburgring, and I think this is where we're going to see a lot of teams thinking we've got to consolidate our position before the 2 races at the end of the season, which are, in my opinion, going to be a bit more niche.
Yeah, that's where sort of your specialist drivers around those circuits could come to the fore a little bit. With those 2, the final 2, but Nürburgring, it's not an easy track as well. The arena section, it allows you to get the cutback several times through that section as well. You've got the run down to the Dunlop hairpin as well. That's a good enough taking opportunity. There are the opportunities there at the Nürburgring. You need to take them and make it count, because that circuit is a prime opportunity to get a race win and to really get a good solid footing going into the final few rounds of the championship. With the championship being so close, not just between the top 2, but you would say the top 4, maybe even the top 5 even, there's still a really big chance of something major happening, as we've seen the Graham Carroll incident as well, finally. So I'm sure we'll look back at that. But it's a great opportunity to really secure a good opportunity for the championship.
Yeah, it is. And of course, at the Nürburgring, you've got one of those fantastic overtaking opportunities, which is at the start of the lap, the Mercedes-Benz Arena, where the track will loop back at itself. And we've seen so much. We're going to see, of course, at Sim Racing Expo in a couple of weeks that we're going to be there helping them out at a lot of racing at the Nürburgring. A lot of drivers are attuned to the Nürburgring. And then, of course, the last 2 rounds of the championship, Laguna Seca with its corkscrew, the dust, the dirt, and then finally, to wrap up the season, we've got ourselves Monza. The championship standings heading out of this event. Joshua Rogers leads the championship with 667 points. Max Benecke 656. Then it's a gap now back to Mitchell de Jong with 574. And actually, de Jong is under pressure now from the driver of Sebastian Job, who has got himself a total of 574 points, being the double victor here today. So Seb is now 108 back, Connery, with 3 races to go. And I talked when I was talking to him about the championship momentum. And of course, I've been doing these World Championship series for a few years now. And I remember Gregor Hutu would always start off a little bit patchy and then grow as the season went along. When Martin Kroenke won his first World Championship season, he grew as the season went along. Momentum isn't just a track thing, it's a series thing, it's a state of mind. Seb, 108 points back. Do you think he's in a shot of getting the championship, or do you think he's better suited for just trying to get that 3rd place from de Jong?
It's still very much a possibility. Mathematically, yeah, for sure. That is still a thing that can happen. But when you consider you have, well, if you get the best qualifying result, best sprint race result, best main race result, is in total for P1s in this series, there's 160 points on offer. So with a couple of good races and maybe some luck falling his way with the other competitors having a couple of instances here and there, Sebastian Job is definitely still in the picture, but he's going to have the toughest road of perhaps anyone. And then you got about 20 or so points further back. You do still have Patrick Holtzman there ready and waiting as well. So right now, I think the chances for Job and Holtzman are slim coming to the end of the season, but there is still a possibility, and it's much more than a non-zero chance.
And Paul, I'm going to make this final question to you. Between Rogers, Benecke, de Jong and Job, I'm going to classify it as a 4-horse race. You have got Patrick Holtzman in 5th, by the way, at 331 points. Martin Kroenke at 514. They are probably still in a shout. Jared Filsell is the first driver I'd say would be out in terms of the championship in 7th place. Jamie Fluke's at 449. Graham Carroll is at 447. And Tommy Erskine is at 414. But out of your top 4 drivers heading to the last 3 rounds, if you were to pick a driver for the 3 different tracks we had, who would you put your Rich Energy contract on?
That's a very good question, and thanks for throwing me under that particular bus. I'm wondering what's written on the side of that bus. But anyway, I will say, for me personally, I can't look past Josh Rogers in terms of his consistency across the different tracks and being up there at the front. And also, I would like to point out as well that for the Porsche Sim Racing Summit that we had last year, he was one of the top qualifying time set around Laguna Seca. So he's got experience in this car around that track in a couple of rounds' time, but he's just been so consistent at the front.
Connery?
Well, in terms of picks for the next couple of races there, Will, I think it's... I've already mentioned at the Nürburgring, Maximilian Benecke 100% going to be taking the race win there. That's going to come back and bite me on the butt in a couple of weeks' time, but that is for sure. But having a look at WeatherTech Race 3 Laguna Seca, I have to argue that's going to be more of a not more of a Sebastian Job track, more of a Joshua Rogers track there. So I expect him to have very, very decent chances there. But you know, at every single race, he seems to have a very decent chance of taking the race win. But then having a look at the finale Monza, that's the arguably the sort of wild card here. Anyone can win that race under certain circumstances. You know, that's no joke there. You know, the whole slipstream trains going on and people being kept in contention, whereas perhaps they shouldn't be in contention under any normal circumstances. That's a very, very tough pick that I don't really want to make, but I know you're going to harass me about this all the time, so I'm just going to say Rogers again for the final round.
Well, let's wrap things up then here, ladies and gentlemen, on the iRacing Esports Network. What a day it has been. There's been action, there's been controversy, there's been fun, there's been hard-fought racing, and quite certainly at least 2 of the passes that will make the iRacing Top 10 video without a shadow of a doubt. But sometimes when you are all alone up front, people forget about you, and that really has been the case today for Sebastian Job. He has had a career-defining drive, winning both in the sprint race and your feature, both in dominating fashion. At no point did it really look that his race victories were going to be under threat. Well, Silverstone has become Red Bull Racing Esports territory, firm and proud here today, but there's still a lot of teams behind that will be looking in the last 3 rounds of the championship to get back into top form. It's just going to be a couple of weeks until we head ourselves to the Nürburgring in Germany. That will be on the 27th of July, and as ever, it'll be live here on RaceSpotTV and on the iRacing Esports Network. And of course, you can catch our coverage of that from 2 p.m. GMT. It's been a great day, as I said, here at Silverstone. What a way to introduce the Silverstone wing to the iRacing World Championship Series. And of course, just before we go, if you like what you see, if it's your first time checking out iRacing, don't forget to visit youtube.com/iRacing Esports Network and check out all the great daily content brought to you by our live iRacing broadcast races from around the world. So that is it. Until 2 weeks' time at the Nürburgring, from Paul Smith and Connery Maddock, good night from Silverstone.